American dream. What do you think about? What do you think about when you hear the phrase American dream? And if you ask the left today, the American dream is dead, right? However they define it, and I think that the American left today would define it differently than maybe you or I would define it. And in fact, I'm certain that that's the case. But the reason why I'm asking is this. I saw a poll that came out this weekend. Roughly 7 in 10 Americans are still optimistic about the American dream. This was a think tank that's a bipartisan think tank that sponsored this nationwide poll. It's a very large poll, and I think it's very accurate. A large sample size, but 70% said it's still there. It's still there. But the question is, how do you define the American dream? How would you define it? And in fact, if you want to go onto YouTube, and we're working on making sure this is going to be up here in a second, but if you go onto YouTube, put in Mark Reardon Show Live, you can join the discussion, and I'll be checking those text messages, so to speak, on the YouTube channel live, because I want to see how you define the American dream, because at least according to 70% of Americans today, it's still here. And that kind of ties in with the idea of American exceptionalism. If you want to watch your progressive friends' heads melt, you don't need to buy a flamethrower. Okay? You don't need a flamethrower to watch their heads melt. Just tell them the phrase American exceptionalism, and they will melt like the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz with a bucket of water. And they'll melt just about that fast, and with an equal amount of screaming, by the way, because that drives them crazy. But the idea, and this is why it drives them crazy, they don't understand what it means. When you and I talk about American exceptionalism, at least from my perspective, I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else. I'm not saying Americans are genetically better, inherently better than Europeans or South Americans or anyone else. What I'm saying is this. American exceptionalism combines several things that makes America itself better than the rest of the world. Not the people, but America. And here's what you put into this recipe for American exceptionalism. The first part of that is freedom. And if you look over the past several decades, the amount of freedom that we have as Americans has gone down. And so that has derailed to some extent, not at all, because we know 70% of Americans still believe in the American dream, but it has lessened the American dream because as government grows in influence, our freedom decreases. That's exactly how it works. As government gets bigger, freedom gets smaller. It's an inverse relationship, right? So we have freedom here. Also, in this recipe for exceptionalism is capitalism. Because if you go to other countries that don't have capitalism or aren't primarily capitalistic, then you have a situation where you have a caste system. Look at India. If you're born in the lower class in India, that's where you're going to be born, that's where you're going to live, and that's where you're going to die. And yet, I can tell you friend after friend after friend of mine who were born into lower class and achieved greatness in America, not because they were inherently better, but because the system of freedom and capitalism allowed them to succeed. I was born, I grew up in a small southern Illinois town. I was the first in my family to ever go to college. No one in my family had ever graduated from college before me. Again, I'm not saying I'm great. What I'm saying is that America is great because you can take a guy who's the son of a coal miner, and then they can have an opportunity to go and to become an attorney, to be able to be talking to you today, not because of my greatness, but because of America's greatness. That's what that's for. And you also mix into this idea, this recipe for American exceptionalism, for the American dream, is individual liberty. And that goes hand in hand with limited government. Because, again, when I mentioned as government grows, freedom decreases. But that means individual liberty as well. And let's take a look over the past 4 years when you talk about individual liberty. What did we hear in the Biden administration? We had the the Department of Government Accountability, I believe is what it was called, where they were monitoring social media. You say the wrong thing, you get kicked off of social media. You say the wrong thing, someone's going to come and get you from the government. The government was literally instructing social media companies to deplatform individuals who said the wrong thing. You say that COVID's from China, out you go. You say that the Hunter Biden laptop is real, out you go. And both of those things were, of course, absolutely true. COVID came from China. The Hunter laptop story was true, and it goes on and on and on. I once questioned, I think I was on this station, and I was questioning, I wasn't saying don't wear masks, I wasn't saying don't social distance, but what I was suggesting is I was reading a study that showed that the COVID virus was smaller than the masks that most people were using, so it could come through the mask. And so my question was, how effective is a mask if the mask itself, the cloth in the mask is larger than the coronavirus? How effective is it? And I got kicked off of YouTube. So my point is that somebody reported me, somebody didn't like it. The government told YouTube, you got to kick people off, and out I went. So, and here's another element, because I'm running out of time here in this segment. I want to make sure I get to this, is that the other concept of the American dream and the other concept of American exceptionalism is equal opportunity, not equal outcomes. What's the difference? You see, the left will tell you that we should have equal outcomes. That's why you look at Mamdani in New York, and he says there should be no billionaires. No billionaires. And he doesn't even like millionaires, which means apparently he doesn't like Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders is a multi-millionaire. Go figure that one out. But the point being is this. We have equal opportunity. Even some punk kid who is the first in his family to go to college can be successful in this country, because that's equal opportunity, right? We had a black man for president, and he had equal opportunity to become the president of the United States. But it doesn't mean the same as equal outcomes, because equal outcomes means socialism. And name me one country in this world, in the history of the planet Earth, where socialism actually worked. And you're going to have a number of 0, because it doesn't work. And then finally, the idea of American exceptionalism, the idea of having the American dream, is also tied in with patriotism and national identity. That doesn't mean that we say our country's never wrong, but it means that we do say that we want to proclaim that America's interests come first for our country. And what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't think Germany wants their national interests first? You don't think Spain wants their national interests first? Of course they do. But the American left doesn't want that, because they don't want to make America great again. They want to make America France again. And I'm not for that, because, you know, in the French language, there's 37 words that explain the concept of surrender. No, I just made that stat up. But the point being is, I don't want to be France again. I want America to be great, because when America is great, the world is great. And that you can take to the bank. Brad Young sitting in for Mark Reardon today. We've got more on the Mark Reardon Show next on 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Good afternoon. I'll tell you what, we've got an accident on westbound 6440. It's pretty much right there approaching Clayton Skinker. They've got the right lane and the right shoulder blocked. Of course, it is causing a delay. And the other accident is pretty far out west. It is on 61, but it's north of Highway P. And we've got traffic jammed in both directions through there. So if that's part of your commute, it really is a slow go. But those are the main issues at this hour. Now, there was an accident that they moved to the shoulder, southbound 55 at Merrimack Bottom, really not causing much of a delay. And southbound 270, a little bit of moderate
Your
volume.
biggest choice in home restoration is, who do you trust with your home, your most valued asset? Few can match Banner Construction's experience and dedication to excellence. Banner is an elite preferred James Hardy contractor and Pella Window specialist. Restoration is a one-time opportunity to have Banner's design team show you architectural options to make your home the neighborhood showcase. Call for a free consultation, 314-569-1050. Now hiring qualified carpenters.
Hey guys, Glover here with my friends Mark and Neil Gelman of eXp Realty. If you need to sell your home to buy a new one, it's never been more important to have an experienced negotiator that you can trust. You need my friends Mark and Neil Gelman on your side, 314-336-1991. Go to thegelmanteam.com.
It's Tom Ackerman for Ophthalmology Associates, the doctor's doctors, 314-966-5000 or online at youridoc.com.
When you ride, you feel the freedom of the open road. But when the road turns dangerous and an accident happens, the pain and confusion can be overwhelming. If you're injured in a motorcycle accident, you need someone who understands. At Kaufman Townsley, we're your St. Louis neighbors. We live here, work here, and we know how important your recovery is. We'll fight for you so you can focus on healing. Kaufman Townsley, real people, real results. Call 314-500-5000.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young sitting in today. And one of the great things about sitting in here on the Mark Reardon Show is I get to talk to not just Mensa candidates, but I get to talk to Mensa leadership like Charles Lipson, syndicated columnist Charles Lipson. You know, he's forgotten more than I'll ever know in my lifetime, and yet I get to talk to guys like this. Mr. Lipson, great to talk to you again, sir.
Hey, as I get older, I'm forgetting more and more.
Well, as much as you know, you can lose to, you can get by on forgetting a little bit here and there.
Long as my creditors don't remind me.
Good point. Good point. Well, the reason why I wanted to reach out to you, Charles, is because the reason why
my word, trust me. But we just don't trust the government anymore. We may have been too trusting in the 1950s,
Yes.
and we're at the other extreme now. I believe the decline really began in a couple of different ways. One is we later learned that the rationale for adding a lot more troops to go into the war in Vietnam was an attack on a U.S. naval vessel, allegedly by North Vietnam, in the Gulf of Tonkin,
Yes.
off of North Vietnam. Turned out it didn't happen. And, I mean, it was an error. They thought the weather was bad. They thought there was something happening. It didn't happen. And it's almost certain that Lyndon Johnson and his people knew it didn't happen, but they thought it was a good thing and they could use it. And then, of course, the Nixon and Watergate, and he erased some of the tapes. And we later learned about all the hanky-panky at the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover. And you can just go on and on. I mean, look, we elected a very bad president, Jimmy Carter, largely on the grounds that he promised to tell us the truth.
Right.
And so, but this has continued apace. And now the second feature that has contributed to that has been a fragmentation of the media. So people who are conservative are going to listen to you, Brett. The people who are very progressive, left wing, are going to listen to MSNBC. And what you tend to want to hear when you tune in to something is something that adds to your information, but largely confirms your viewpoint. You don't mind hearing somebody on Fox News. I think that, by the way, the Brett Baer newscast at 5 p.m. is just a terrific newscast, and when they have people at the conclusion of it, they usually have somebody who's a straight reporter, and then they have somebody who might be a little on the liberal side. But they have people to push back against them. That's what we used to do in college. We just don't do that anymore.
No,
I was
we don't.
having lunch. I was having lunch with a mother and her daughter today, and the daughter is a senior at the University of Wisconsin, and she said, I said, how much diversity of opinion is there in your classes? And she said, none.
I
on
know.
anything. And that's just terrible.
It
So
is.
we're no longer the fragmentation of the media, the skepticism about hearing discordant information, the lack of trust in the government all congeal around these three things. Does anybody trust what James Comey or John Brennan says? I don't.
No, and I mentioned before in the prior segment, I touched briefly on the Hunter Biden laptop story, and when you look at what John Brennan said, there was a list of, I think, 32 high-ranking members of the intelligence. 51. Okay, there you go. Of the intelligence community, they all said it was a hoax. It's a Russian disinformation. And then it turned out at Hunter Biden's trial, the FBI showed up and confirmed that it was accurate. And yet we were told by esteemed members of the government that it was Russian hoax.
Exactly. And so what are you supposed to believe? And what gave them credence in the minds of a lot of people was that they had been at a very high level in the CIA, maybe a few at the FBI. But the assumption, wrong as it turned out, was these people had some kind of inside knowledge. They may not be in the government now, but they were people who knew what's what and who's who. And if they told you this was a Russian hoax, I still have friends, Democrats on the Democratic side, who think it was all true, that there was a Russian collusion with Trump. So there's just nothing. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?
And we also saw that really, this will be taught, hopefully will be taught in political science classes forever. But this idea of the presidential debate. I mean, we were told up before that debate between Trump and Biden that Biden could do trigonometry while he was doing backflips, while juggling eggs and plates. And yet when we saw it, when we saw the reality of who that man was during that debate, we all had this epiphany that we've been lied to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just sorry that too many of our audience is too young to remember Mr. Magoo, because that's what he looked like. He was just like one of those deer in the headlights.
Yes, James Backus, the voice.
And
Yep.
I think the missing question is, why did he do that debate?
Yes.
We still don't know. Why did he expose himself? I mean, he had been hiding for 4 years, and we're now beginning to learn that the person who controlled the auto pen that signed his documents,
Yes.
Neera Tanden, who's a very far left person, but she was called before the House committee that James Comer runs, a Republican of Kentucky, and she said, I didn't get the authorization directly from Joe Biden. I got it from his inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a theory that I haven't heard anybody put out. I think he didn't just use the auto pen when he was going to sleep on the beach in Delaware. He did it when he was going to sleep in the White House in the mid-afternoon. And but I have a theory about why he did it. And that is, if you had seen his signature, the quality of the physical decline would have been evident in the signature itself. If you've had elderly parents who had to sign documents, you could tell that their signature didn't look the same as it used to.
Exactly. I have not heard that anywhere. We're talking to syndicated columnist Charles Lipson. And, Charles, you're right. I have not heard that theory anywhere until just now.
Yeah, well, this is the reason you pay me the big bucks, you know.
Exactly. You and me both, brother.
Hey, but I got to tell you, it's a bad thing when people no longer trust the government about anything.
You're right.
And what's worse, that lack of trust is justified. They've earned it.
Yes. Yes, they have. And that is unfortunate. Charles Lipson, syndicated columnist. We're coming up on a break here, my friend. But if folks want to get your syndicated column in their own email box, how can they do that?
They can just go to charleslipson.com, Lipson, charleslipson.com, and just there's a thing you can fill out that just gives me your name and your email address. Everything is free, and I will send you my columns, and I actually appreciate hearing from people. Sometimes I'll hear from a listener in St. Louis who may have been a retired FBI agent, or somebody who was a police officer or served in the military, and they have a different take on these issues and may have some inside knowledge, and I love hearing from it, or they just disagree with me, or better yet, they're smart enough to agree.
That's right. Or maybe they're teachable. You know, if they reach out to you, they might be teachable from your professorial perspective, and you can flip them like a pancake on a hot griddle. Charles Lipson, syndicated columnist. I enjoy talking to you, my friend, and thanks for joining us today on 97.1 FM Talk.
Thank you, Brad.
Hey, I always love talking to Charles Lipson. Coming up next, after the break, we're going to talk to Susan Crabtree. She is the Real Clear Politics national political correspondent and co-author of the new book called Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. We're going to talk about several things, including Butler, the Secret Service, maybe Medicare, Medicaid, all next on the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young sitting in, 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Good afternoon. I'll tell you what, we've got an accident westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker. They've got the right lane and the right shoulder blocked, and traffic is jammed behind it. Right now, it's back near Kings Highway. Now, there's a little bit of volume that's mainly moderate, but southbound 270 between Page and Doherty Ferry, and eastbound 64, a little slow at Big Bend. Now, if you are westbound on 70, things are in pretty good shape. There is some volume northbound 170 at 70, but that's the worst of it. Quiet on the downtown bridges and on the Illinois side. This report brought to you by Point with an E Pest Control. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Point Pest Control is reminding you it's time to spray for mosquitoes. How can something that tiny interrupt your outside gatherings? Have Point Pest Control spray today so your next outside gathering is mosquito-free. 636-798-0023. Mention Annie to save an additional 10%. PointPestControl.com.
Hi, this is Steve Butts with the Crawford Butts Insurance Agency. I know we're all experiencing sticker shock when you get your insurance premium. Now more than ever, you need an independent insurance agent to find the best value for your family's insurance needs. Crawford Butts, family owned and operated for more than 60 years. Please give us a call at 314-752-2500 or at crawfordbutts.com.
We, without hesitation, recommend that anybody work with ThrottleNet. The experience will be as good as it's been for us, for anybody, because you'll get a true partnership and you'll be able to rest easy that you're going to get the service that you need while they're also doing all those things that you don't want to have to think about, that you don't want to have to worry about. They're always doing that in the background for you.
Don't wait for your next IT crisis. If your business depends on technology, you need a partner that's got your back. Contact ThrottleNet.com to get a free IT evaluation and see how we can support your IT everything.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
The time is 3:32. This update is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Welcome back to the conservative voice of St. Louis, 97.1 FM Talk. Brad Young sitting in for Mark Reardon today, and I'm really looking forward to talking to Susan Crabtree. She's a Real Clear Politics national political correspondent and co-author of the brand new book, Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan Crabtree, welcome to 97.1 FM Talk.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
I wanted to talk to you because you wrote a fantastic piece for Real Clear Politics about Butler, Pennsylvania, that we're at the 1-year anniversary of the Trump assassination attempt. And here's what Rand Paul had to say about really what happened at Butler.
I think it was a cultural cover-up for the agency. They did not want to assess blame. They did not want to look internally, and they wanted to discount any of their actions that might have led to this. This was a cover-your-ass sort of moment, and I do believe that they did know. There's no way that the director of Secret Service, that she did not know that these requests have been made. And so, yes, it was a huge failure.
So, Susan Crabtree, break it down for us. In what ways was Butler a failure from the Secret Service's perspective?
Oh, well, let me count the ways. It was a debacle on so many levels. Of course, the AGR building is the primary focus, but there were communication issues. AGR building being where the roof where Thomas Crooks opened fire on President Trump and a crowd, killing Corey Comparatori and almost killing Donald Trump, hitting him in the head, the ear. It was such a breakdown. We will go to the suspensions. So there were 6 people suspended. All 6 were involved, some more than others. So there was a 10 to 42 day without pay suspension. This is a complete slap on the wrist. Nobody was fired. And what I broke last week is the supervisors, 2 of them, two key people, did not get suspended or disciplined in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they got promoted.
Oh, my goodness.
It's the younger, more junior agents that didn't have enough experience and were set up to fail, but were supposed to be provided that oversight, those layers of more experienced agents that actually walked through the security plan with them, signed off on it. One was an inspector who was there to provide direct oversight from the inspections department because it was such a big rally with an Iranian threat involved, an acute Iranian threat that they knew about. We now know, thanks to Senator Grassley's report that came out on Saturday morning, which I incorporated in my story, we know that they knew about the Iranian threat 10 days beforehand, before the Butler rally. but the counter snipers still got flown in approved, and they were only there 2 days beforehand. Usually it takes them 5 to 6 days to do their assessment. They botched their whole security plan. They too did not have weren't concerned about the AGR building, weren't concerned that there were trees obstructing one of the counter snipers' views. You understand that the counter sniper, it was named they called it Hercules 1, had to swing around and point because he was covering the other side of the rally. The one that was supposed to be covering the AGR building where Thomas Crooks was, couldn't see Thomas Crooks because there was a tree in the way.
Oh my goodness! I didn't know that till just this moment. That the actual counter sniper that took out the assassin or the attempted assassin, he had to swing his gun around because the other counter sniper couldn't see the building because of trees.
Yes, and that Hercules won. So he's supposedly the hero of the day, right? That's what we thought leading into these reports over the weekend, the Senate reports. Okay, he was the hero.
Right.
But he was also the supervisor involved. And he got the kill shot on Thomas Crooks, so he didn't get the scrutiny. He was supposed to be there with his 10 years of more experience in the junior counter sniper and say, no, wait, how is that AGR building being covered? Mm-hmm. Why he needed to have the radios that the locals gave them so that they had communication. He should have been calling as soon as he got word, which he did at 5:45 p.m. before the 6-ish p.m. rally. He got word 5:45 p.m. that there was a guy that the local law enforcement were looking for, Thomas Crooks, and that he had a rangefinder. He, at that point, started looking for him himself on his scope, but he didn't call into the shift agents, the ones that are on the stage. That's the current one of them was the current director of the Secret Service, Sean Curran, the guy in the black sunglasses in the iconic photo. He didn't know, so he brought Donald Trump on stage. That is a complete communications breakdown.
It is.
So that guy was testified before the Senate, and they asked him, why didn't you call your shift and tell him? He said, well, there was other people to do that. So he was not only the hero of the day, he also was a contributor to these problems, these layers of problems.
Did not realize that. We're talking to Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics national political correspondent and co-author of the brand new book, Fool's Gold. So, Susan, in your piece for Real Clear Politics, which is, by the way, a website I go to every single day, you've got a quote here. We're not going to fire our way out of this. Now, when I first read the quote, I was thinking fire your way out of it, like a gun battle fire. But you're talking about firing in terms of terminating the individuals who literally and figuratively dropped the ball here.
Yes, they say that they can't fire anybody. Oh, they never fire anybody in the Secret Service. They kind of let them retire peacefully. They put them on administrative leave. There is so much shenanigans and no accountability. For years and years and years at the Secret Service, I've been covering it for 12 years during the Obama administration when you had that terrible scandal about the prostitutes down in Colombia that the agents were engaged in, and also all the fence jumping incidents and security breaches. So I don't have full faith that this had anything to do about them not being able to fire themselves out of this. There's multiple conflicts of interest here. Sean Curran was a detail. His buddies were the supervisors. Ultimately, it was his fault, the buck stops at the boss, that this Mio Perez, this very inexperienced agent with no business, she had a reputation as a partier. She was posting from her assignments on social media. All these things, I've broken these stories on them for months. And she had no business being there. But ultimately, he let it happen. And I said, well, why was the Iranian threat was so high.
Yes.
And we know that now with this Grassley report coming out over the weekend that they knew 10 days beforehand. So why did you let this agent with no experience leading security for a big outdoor rally with a huge threat hanging over it. Why did you let her do it? Oh, well, the rotation came up. Her rotation, everybody needs to learn sometime. That has since been revamped, I hear.
Good.
It was only because of congressional scrutiny in my stories and others that they have changed their ways, though. The Secret Service is very reactive. They don't think proactively, and they've got a lot on their plate. It's a zero-fail mission. Obviously, they're willing to put their lives on the line, literally their bodies in front of the president to protect him. I give them full credit for that, but the Secret Service has been and remains a cultural mess. And I don't know if you know this, but just breaking before I got on the phone with you, it's Project Veritas uncovering a catfish operation where a Secret Service agent within the White House is texting posing as an undercover, but texting a young woman in inappropriate things about his job at the White House from the White House and telling her to come inside the White House. Oh. This is just typical behavior, and I'm telling you that this is a cultural problem because the standards have been lowered. They can't retain their agents because they work them too hard, they stretch them too thin, and for years now, especially during the Biden administration, there were so many DEI initiatives that the senior male agents that were experienced just headed for the exits.
So we're talking to Susan Crabtree. And Susan, last question here before we hit the break, and that's this. Is this a case of just ineptitude it was inevitable that the ineptitude would finally result in a crisis, or was there any suggestion, or has your investigation found any possible link to people just not wanting to protect President Trump?
Well, I think that the Kimberly Cheadle position, the former director who had to resign after her terrible testimony about the sloped roof at Congress after the J13, she obviously had blinders on, or it was partisan on her part. I can't get in her head, but she was a hand-selected director by Jill Biden, and she had a close relationship with the Bidens from her time in the vice presidency. So I personally think it's that. She denied assets to Donald Trump repeatedly. Her leadership did. If it wasn't her personally, it was her leadership. It was this whole notion that he's a former president and he doesn't deserve assets. Never mind that he's one of the most controversial figures in modern politics, if not the most, and he's holding outdoor rallies with tens of thousands of people. He broke the mold. Donald Trump always breaks the mold, but in this case, for security purposes, absolutely. And you cannot use that silly, outdated logic on Donald Trump. So this is a logical conclusion that you would have to change that. So I think she either I think personally, I believe it was partisan on her behalf, but I do know she did try to provide counter snipers to this event, the Butler rally, but the counter snipers botched it. So it's a combination of factors. It's ineptitude and gross mismanagement from the top on down.
Very good analysis. Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics, also author of Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan, thanks so much for joining us on 97.1 FM Talk St. Louis.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Great to talk to you, Susan. We've got more coming up next, and I'm going to dive into this idea. I've had conversations with my progressive friends about Mondami and is he dangerous for the country? They say no, he's not. I'm going to dive into why I think he is and talk to you about some of the policies that he holds most dear. And I think you're going to have the same reaction as I did. Oh, my goodness. Coming up next here on 97.1 FM Talk, Brad Young sitting in for Mark Reardon. Don't go away.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Good afternoon. Crews are on the scene of an accident westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker. And they've got the right lane and the right shoulder blocked, and that's created some slow-moving traffic behind it. It's back to about Kings Highway. Westbound 70 is okay. It's a little slow out at Highway A. And 64 out west, some moderate volume at Prospect. But other than that, at least on 64 and 70, we're in good shape. 44 looks good. Southbound 270, slow pockets from Page down through Doherty Ferry. And now we're starting to see some volume. Southbound 55 in the construction zone at Bates. And eastbound 64 headed for the Poplar Street Bridge. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. We recently received a call from an injured person. The insurance company had offered them $11,000. We took the case over and got more than $2 million in court. Morgan & Morgan.
Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Donovan Charity Clay Shoot happening Thursday, August 7th at Strathelman Farms Club in Weldon Spring. Join Cardinals standout Brendan Donovan, teammates, and local celebs for a day of clay shooting and community, all to benefit Team Red, White, and Blue and their mission to support veterans' health and wellness. Don't wait. Sponsorships and shooter spots are going fast. Visit teamrwb.org/Donovan now to sign up. Show your support and make a difference for those who've served. 97.1 FM Talk. Backing our veterans every step of the way.
The Mark Cox Morning Show.
It's tough if you're a woman in America. You have to put that burqa on every day before you leave the house. You have to.
I forgot mine today. Shoot.
The Mark Cox Morning Show, weekdays from 5 to 9, right here on 97.1 FM Talk. Making your afternoon a little hotter. Mark Reardon on 97.1.
Brad Young back here on the Mark Reardon Show. Just reading over some of the comments. If you want to post comments on today's show, I want to tell you I read every single one of them. And in particular, thank you, Kate. Appreciate the compliment. If you want to comment, just go to YouTube. When you go there, put in Mark Reardon Show Live. And when you do that, you can put in some comments. It's hard for me to reply because I only got during the commercial breaks to do that. But and I'll try to do that. But listen, I read every single one of those comments. And to me, that's the beauty of talk radio that no other medium can replicate. And that is you can actually be a part of the show. You know, if you're listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, you can't text Joe Rogan and say, hey, Joe, what do you think of this? That's not going to happen. If you're watching Hannity on Fox News, you don't get to participate in the show, but you do here. So I'm going to be reading those. Love your comments. Love your feedback. And I want to dive into this topic because, again, as I kind of set it up before the break, I was talking to a progressive friend of mine, and I was telling her that I think this the entire candidacy of Mamdani is going to come back to bite the Democrats very hard, very badly, because it's not good for the Democrat Party to have, from their perspective, to have the face of the Democrat Party be Mamdani and AOC, right? And she said, no, you have to look at it. This is just in New York. And she contrasted with Governor Beshear in Kentucky. And she said, Governor Beshear in Kentucky is a Democrat. He has a 70% approval rating in the state of Kentucky, which is as red can be. So you've got to look at this is just for New York. But here's why she's wrong. And here's why this will make an enormous difference nationwide. Because right now, if you want to see who is the ideological leader of the Democrat Party right now, who do you hear about? You hear about Mamdani and you hear about AOC. And you occasionally hear from Bernie Sanders, and hopefully you don't hear from Elizabeth Warren because her voice makes my ears hurt. So I try not to listen to her. But when you hear these people, and particularly I'm going to zero in on Mamdani and AOC, they're becoming the face of the Democrat Party. And if you talk to mainstream Democrats, which I do a lot, they hate that. They hate this idea that they are being tied with Marxism, because that's what both of these people are. And if you look at some of the policies of Mamdani, some of the statements that he's made, if this becomes the face of the Democrat Party, even if he wins, he could be right now he's leading, in fact, to be the next governor next mayor of New York City, which is ironic because New York is the literal center of capitalism of the planet. And we're facing the prospect of having a socialist mayor of the capitalist center of the planet. Boy, Talk about irony. But even if he wins, here's the bigger picture. You know, there's a difference between playing checkers and chess. What's the difference? In checkers, you play maybe 2 moves ahead, maybe 3. In chess, I love chess, you're playing 4, 5, and 6 moves ahead, right? So if you're talking about who's going to be the next mayor of New York, that's a chess move, okay? He's probably going to beat Adams, and you look at Adams and Cuomo, those 2 guys are still in the race. They're probably going to split the opposition, and Mamdani's probably going to be the next mayor. But when you look at this idea of how will that impact nationally, this is literally the doomsday scenario for Democrats nationwide. Here are some of the things that Mamdani has said, and when he's questioned about it, even recently, he doesn't back away from it. He doesn't try to explain it away. He doesn't try to say, well, you're taking it out of context. He stands by things like this. These are quotes. I'm reading you a quote. Right now, if we're talking about the cancellation of student debt, if we're talking about Medicare for all, these are issues which we have a groundswell of popular support across this country. But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this moment, unquote. Let's break that down for a second, because he talks about the issues, the groundswell of popular support about cancellation of student debt. Really? Is that a very popular position in this country? Because if it is, it's a crazy position to buy into. Literally, any other social program in this country would help the poor and the minorities and the disadvantaged people of this country more than the cancellation of student debt. Why? Because most people who have student debt from going to college are going to make money when they get out of college. Lawyers have student debt. Doctors have student debt. Do they need their student debt eliminated? Of course they don't. And so the vast majority of people, statistics show across the board, if you go to college, you're going to make more money than if you don't go to college. And so the wiping out of student debt helps those people who have the greatest ability to pay off the loans. It doesn't make any sense economically. It doesn't make any sense morally. You signed up to take out loans, you promised to repay them, and now you want the government to wipe them out? We're already $36 trillion in debt, folks. How much more debt do you want? It makes no sense. But here's what, when you get into the details, he gets into the other issues. Then there are other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, that is a boycott, divesting, and sanctions against countries that they don't agree with. That one is a little esoteric, but here's the part that should strike fear in the hearts of every American. Quote, whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, unquote. Right now, if you're around Google, go Google this. Google seizing the means of production. I haven't done it, but I can tell you what's going to come up in the top 10 searches. It'll be in there somewhere, and that is that seizing the means of production is the bedrock philosophy of Marxism. That's what it is. Because when he talks about seizing the means of production, Marxists think that you have to seize the means of production in order to eliminate capitalism. I don't even have time to go through a lot of these other quotes where they're anti-Semitic, where he advocates positions that can easily be seen as being anti-Semitic. He talks about the idea that capitalism is evil and should be replaced by socialism. All of these positions, if he becomes the next mayor of New York, folks, he's going to be the poster child for the Democrat Party going in to the 2026 midterm elections. And if he's the face of the party, how do mainstream Democrats, and there are a lot of mainstream Democrats out there that aren't progressives, but how are they going to be able to run for office when the face of their party is an avowed socialist Marxist? How are they going to do that? I don't know how they're going to do that. So when you see these predictions about how, well, you know, the party in office always does worse when it comes to the midterms, that's what the political pundits are going to tell you. I haven't seen any polling data for 2026, but what I can tell you is this, that if AOC and Mamdani are the ones that voters associate with Democrats, when they go into the ballot box, are they going to vote for a socialist Marxist? Are they going to vote for someone that they think is in the same party as someone who is anti-Semitic? Are they going to vote for someone who wants to strip away their opportunity to reach and to realize the fruits of the American dream? Is anyone going to vote for those people? I don't know, maybe other than college students and other socialists. Sure, that's a given. A lot of those are going to vote for that. But I talked to somebody recently who was telling me that in the only lack of diversity in colleges these days is the lack of intellectual diversity, because there is none. So, yeah, the socialist vote is easily going to capture college-age kids and maybe very old, wealthy liberals, but that's not who elects people in this country, as we saw in the November of 2024 election. That's not who puts people in office. It's people like you. It's mainstream America. It's people who have regular jobs, who go to work every day, who pay their bills and expect others to pay their bills, that they're trying to have a home and own a house and provide for their family. Those are not the values of socialist Marxists, and that's what Mondami is. Hey, we got to take a break. We'll be back after this on 97.1 FM Talk. Brad Young here. Don't go away.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
You know what? Crews are still working on this accident westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker, and they've got the right lane and the right shoulder blocked. We've got a parking lot that goes back through about Kings Highway. There's a stall reported eastbound now in the right lane on the Blanchette Bridge, and an accident up north. This one is eastbound 270. Looks like it's just before New Florissant, and traffic is stacking up there as well. If you are on southbound 55, look for some slow-moving traffic headed for Bates in the construction zone. And southbound 270 has moderate volume from Page down through Doherty Ferry. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Hey, it's Mark Reardon. If you're nearing retirement or already retired, call my friends Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw with the Retirement Advisory Group. They'll show you how linking to the market is much safer than owning the market for your retirement savings. They're the official financial advisors of my show. Go to retirementkey.com.
Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort, offering small ship experiences with a shore excursion included in every port and programs designed for cultural enrichment. Discover more at Viking.com. That's Viking.com.
Imagine this, a summer evening, relaxing under a beautiful porch overhang, hosting your friends on a composite deck, or enjoying a bug-free breeze in a screened room. That sounds dreamy, right? Hi, it's Kim, and that dream can be your reality with Lakeside Renovation and Design, because they specialize in creating outdoor spaces that make your backyard the go-to spot for family and friends. And with their attention to detail and the high-quality materials they use, you'll have a space that lasts for years. Visit lakesiderd.com today to get started on your outdoor oasis.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
A green light at the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. The justices will not block the Trump plan to dismantle the federal education department in a 6-3 decision lifting a federal judge's order that temporarily reversed planned layoffs and other cuts. Those changes can now move forward as the legal fight continues.
The Supreme Court's 3 liberal justices noted their dissents. Justice Sonia Sotomayor says only Congress can eliminate the department, and the judiciary has a duty to check lawlessness, not expedite it.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. Ukraine's president thanking President Trump for the new U.S. deal with NATO, which will get more weapons to Ukraine.
We've made a deal today where we are going to be sending them weapons and they're going to be paying for them. We, the United States, will not be having any payment made.
President Trump making the official Oval Office announcement alongside the head of NATO, also threatening 100% tariffs on Russia's trading partners if there's no deal to end the Ukraine war in 50 days. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
Is he just now figuring out that Ukraine is a friend to the United States of America and Russia is an enemy?
The president emphasizing previous costs to the U.S. His administration also concerned about U.S. weapon stockpiles. About 40 makers of ice cream and other frozen treats in the U.S. pledged to remove artificial dyes by 2028. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary calling it part of a renaissance moment for health in America.
When we first said we want to remove all 9 petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and do it soon, the naysayers said it would not be possible.
He says just weeks later, nearly 40% of food manufacturers have agreed. Today's voluntary move by ice cream makers follows recent announcements by other major companies. America's listening to Fox News.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZzzQuil Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZzzQuil Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
No one wants to leave behind stress for their family. That's why a trust or a will is so important. Without one, your assets might go to the wrong people or leave out loved ones. Also, probate is long, expensive, and often avoidable with a revocable trust. Trustandwill.com makes it simple to create a personalized estate plan. A trust or will provides clarity and peace of mind. Get 20% off on your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/radio.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
A quiet summertime evening. It's warm. It's humid in the 80s. Partly cloudy skies. 74 for the low. Tuesday, partly sunny. It's kind of hot and humid. 89 for the high. Probably more humid than the heat. However, there will be an uptick in scattered thunderstorms on Tuesday. Some with heavy downpours of rain and lightning. Should quiet down quickly Tuesday night. Wednesday and Thursday, sunny but spot afternoon storms. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
We've been here 30 years, 30 Christmases in this house, and we have the traditions that most families have.
That's Terry talking about her experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We did Rhino Shield 14 years ago, and the house still looks the same as the first day. Rhino Shield really worked with me to help me get just the right nice soft yellow, and it's 14 years later, and it's the same color.
The main reason Terry called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by its 25-year transferable warranty.
It just sounded wonderful that we could have the house coated with Rhino Shield and not have to worry about it again for 25 years.
Take it from Terry. Give Rhino Shield a call now for a free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
There have been neighbors that have come by and said, "Did you just have your house painted?" Because they wanted to know who the contractor was. And I said, "No, it's actually Rhino Shield."
877-25rhino.com.
Hats off to family fun on Sunday, July 27th, when the Birds host the Padres. That day, 20,000 fans, 16 and older, will get a City Connect throw pad courtesy of Quick Trip. And thanks to Haichu, 10,000 kids ages 15 and under will take home a Cardinals hat with custom charms. Upgrade your and your kiddos' game gear. Snag your tickets today at cardinals.com/promotion.
This is Alec Burleson, St. Louis Cardinals, for the Lou.
You better watch out. You better not cry. It's Christmas in July, presented by St. Louis Union Station on Sunday, July 27th, as the Cardinals slay the Padres. With a special themed ticket, fans will receive an exclusive Christmas jersey hoodie to celebrate the halfway mark to the holidays. Come make merry memories this summer. Get tickets now at cardinals.com/theme.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young sitting in today. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us right here on 97.1 FM Talk. Take a little break from my my law firm legal practice, and I get to sit in with the cool kids here on 97.1 FM Talk. Love that. You know what else is great about doing this? In my law firm, I never get to give stuff away. I give people paychecks, sure, but I'm not giving stuff away. But here, if you want to see Jason Aldean, you know Jason Aldean, you know him, you love him, you can't live without him. And if you want to go to the concert on July 19 with Mark Reardon, go to the concert with Mark, hang out with Jason Aldean. What could be better? If you'd like to be a part of that, we're going to take the 8th caller right now at 314-241-9797. That's 314-241-9797. 8th caller gets tickets to see Jason Aldean at the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater on July 19, 2025. Speaking of giving stuff away, here's one of the things that has driven me crazy during the process of getting the big, beautiful bill passed. One of the things, if I say about Medicaid, what has the mainstream media and what is the left, which again, I'm being redundant when I say that, but what have they been saying about the implications of the big, beautiful bill when it comes to Medicaid recipients? You've heard the stats. You've heard them say that 12 million low-income people would lose their health coverage if the bill passes. 12 million. Well, first of all, that's not true at all. And I'm going to break some of that down here to show you how that's not the case. But here's the other thing that to me is, I first learned this in college. Sorry, I'm thinking faster than I'm talking. I first learned this in college. When you hear that the government is going to cut something, what does that mean to you? Okay, if I come up to you and I say, okay, I'm paying you as my employee, I'm paying you $50,000 a year. I'm going to cut your salary. What does that mean to you? That means, hey, I was making $50,000, now I'm going to make $40,000. That's a $10,000 cut, right? But that's not what a cut means in Washington, D.C. Here's the lie that we've been told for decades, and I wish would be exposed more than it is. And it's this. If you plan to increase Medicaid spending by 20% over 10 years, and then you reduce that increase to 15% over 10 years, that's called a 5% cut. Now, wait a minute. Listen to that number. In this bill that just passed, it's only going to reduce the increase of spending on Medicaid. Nothing with zero is going to be cut. Now, I tend to think we should be cutting some of that, not just reducing the increase. But in Washington speak, in media speak, in bureaucracy speak, if you reduce the increase of spending, that amounts to a cut. You see how you've been lied to? You've been lied to by the media. You've been lied to by the progressive left when they say the Republicans want to cut Medicaid spending. Because I looked at the numbers. And the Republicans have voted to increase spending over the next 10 years. It's going to go up every single year. But wait, isn't that a cut? No, it's an increase. A smaller increase is still an increase. It is not a cut. Republicans voted to preserve Medicaid for the needy by making sure that everyone using the program's resources are truly needy and eligible. Listen, the left has gone berserk over this idea of if you are physically able, you should be required to work in exchange for your Medicaid benefits. Why is that a problem? Why should people who are capable of working get to sit on the couch and watch daytime television and watch Oprah, if she's even still on the daytime television, which I don't think she is. Once you take Ozempic, you got to stay close to the bathroom. You can't be hosting TV shows, right? But why should they get to stay at home? You're not staying home. You're out working for your money. You're not staying home. I'm not staying home and getting paid. We're all working to get paid. If people are on Medicaid and can physically work, why can't they? No one can answer that question. In fact, Bill Clinton answered that question in the 1990s when he signed a bill into law that required required physically able people on Medicare to go out and work. What is the harm in that? Why should we be paying people to not work? That makes no sense. That's what we did during COVID. We paid people to not work, and then we were shocked, I tell you, when the government deficit ballooned. I think asking people to work when they can treats people with dignity. It says that you have something to contribute to society, and society is better if you are out contributing than if you're just staying at home and sitting on the couch and watching daytime TV. That's the fair thing to do. It's the moral thing to do, and it is the right thing to do. And speaking of the right thing to do, we've got to take a break. Hopefully we've sent somebody to see Jason Aldean. I know we have. Matthew's telling me, yes, we have.
We're sending Angie to see Jason Aldean, but unfortunately it's not with Mark Reardon.
Oh, it's not.
Yes,
it's just
the copy in front of us. I can see why. It does kind of look, as soon as I look at it, I'm like, you know what? I can see why we thought it was that. But no, you're getting to see Jason Aldean, courtesy Mark Reardon.
Oh, courtesy of Mark Reardon. Okay, great. First time I've ever heard the word courtesy and Mark Reardon in the same sentence. Dope. But hey, listen, I would tell that to him. That's not behind his back. I kid him all the time. But we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back from this with the best part of the Mark Reardon show, Sue's News, next. Brad Young here on 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've still got a jam on westbound 6440. There was an accident earlier as you approach Clayton Skinker, and they had the right lane and the right shoulder blocked, and it's just left us with slow-moving traffic. And the right lane and the right shoulder are still blocked. So look for a jam that goes back past Kings Highway. Well, then it is slowing just about at McKnight, so there could be an incident there. Southbound 270, moderate volume south of Page, in pockets through Doherty Ferry. Westbound 70, a little off the pace at Jennings Station Road. And westbound 64, some slow-moving traffic, Lake St. Louis Boulevard on out through the 70 split. You know where we look good is the Poplar Street Bridge. Really no delay headed for the bridge either. This report brought to you by Point with an E Pest Control. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Point Pest Control is reminding you it's time to spray for mosquitoes. How can something that tiny interrupt your outside gatherings? Have Point Pest Control spray today so your next outside gathering is mosquito-free. 636-798-0023. Mention Annie to save an additional 10%. PointPestControl.com.
If you need work on your fence or your deck, there's only one place to call. That's Chesterfield Fence and Deck. It's what they specialize in and have been since 1968. Mark Cox here. You know what? If you call right now to Chesterfield Fence and Deck, tell them you heard me talking about it. You'll get 48 months interest-free financing on that next outdoor project with my friends at Chesterfield Fence and Deck. All of their products are guaranteed with a 5-year labor warranty, a comprehensive material warranty. They offer the best exclusive warranties in the industry. You can't beat that. Better Business Bureau accredited with an A+ rating. And when you work with Chesterfield Fence and Deck, you are getting the absolute best from their professional trained installers, their crews, their trucks. They have all the latest tools. They also run their own crews, which is important. Get a hold of them today. Tell them you heard Mark Cox talk about it. Tell them you want 48 months interest-free financing. It's ChesterfieldFence.com.
Major League Baseball realized they needed new rules to help grow and speed up the game. Your retirement strategy may also need updating to keep up with potential tax law changes, Social Security, or whatever curveball Uncle Sam throws your way. Call Ricken Financial for an initial no-cost portfolio x-ray. 314-207-6211. That's 314-207-6211 or online at rickenfinancial.com. Investment advisory products and services made available through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor.
Hi, this is Steve Butts with the Crawford Butts Insurance Agency. I know we're all experiencing sticker shock when you get your insurance premium. Now more than ever, you need an independent insurance agent to find the best value for your family's insurance needs. Crawford Butts, family owned and operated for more than 60 years. Please give us a call at 314-752-2500 or at crawfordbutts.com.
You know how you always want to know about everyone else's money? On the podcast, What We Spend, guests will, for 1 week, tell us everything they spend their money on.
My son slammed $6 worth of blueberries in 5 minutes.
And everything that makes them feel.
I want to own a house. I want to have a child. But this morning, I really wanted a coffee.
Because at the end of the day, money is always about more than your balance. Listen to and follow What We Spend, an Odyssey original podcast. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young in today. And, of course, joined here by Fred Bottomer. I was going to say something else, but, when you're in the presence of a Hall of Famer, it takes your breath away. I was literally speechless being in the presence of a Hall of Famer, Fred Bottomer.
That's a little much. But thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And I got to tell you, here's a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff here. Like today, I at my law firm, whenever I do the Reardon Show, I'm busy up until the point I got to run out the door. And Fred helps put all this together in a way that you just can't even imagine. So, Fred, I just didn't want to say thank you privately, which I do often. I wanted to tell you thank you publicly, because you help make this happen every day.
You're very welcome. I enjoy working with you.
And the reason why I like to listen to the Mark Reardon Show, besides listening to Mark, is this very segment, which is Sue's News.
These allegations are deeply concerning.
Does the president have any comment?
We're not going to comment.
It's not clear messaging.
No. And now, Sue's News. Brought to you by Sue.
Do you have the dinger, the bell?
Fred's got it. There you go.
Thank you, Fred. Okay.
Yep.
I want to share that it is National Tape Measure Day.
National Tape Measure Day.
That is correct. I don't know how you can celebrate. Perhaps you can measure your fridge, anything around the house. But it is National Tape Measure Day. Now, I remember back when there were rulers more than tape measures. I guess they both existed, but, there'd only be, when you were a kid, a ruler in the junk drawer when you tried to measure something. It was terrible.
Right, exactly. In the junk drawer, you would have to dig for 5 minutes to find it in the junk drawer.
And then when you did, then you'd have to put it end over end. So, okay, tape measure day, that's fine. But it's also National Mac and Cheese Day.
Now we're talking.
And in a new survey, they say 86% of Americans say it's an adult food, not just for kids. Fred, are you eating mac and cheese?
Not that often, no.
Me neither. You, I guess so.
Well, here's the thing. Have either of you ever had lobster mac and cheese?
I had a little bit once. Where was that? But I didn't order it. I ate somebody else's. Are you saying it's great, Brad?
I'm saying next time you're at a nice restaurant, don't get it at a dive bar, okay?
Right.
All right, because you don't know if that's really lobster or not. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
But if you're at a nice place and they've got lobster mac and cheese, get that as an appetizer. And listen, when you're eating that, here's what I want you to think. Brad Young is a genius.
Okay. Is it white cheese or yellow when they do that?
It's typically white. I've seen it both, but I typically see it with white cheese.
Okay.
And they put lobster in there. In addition to just the chunks of lobster, it's also flavored with a lot of extra butter.
Yeah.
And listen, you're probably going to put on some pounds eating that, but oh my goodness, is it worth it?
Maybe for that I would do it. I know the peoples love mac and cheese. They all love it for a side. I just, man.
I know, but you're thinking of Kraft mac and cheese.
I am.
That's comes
exactly
with the powder, right? And you think if you inhale that powder, you're going to get asbestosis or something when you're dumping the powder into the pan to make it. No, if you get high-end mac and cheese with lobster, I'm telling you, your mind will be switched.
I also feel like we have to say in St. Louis, with so many good barbecue places here, there's a lot of great barbecue places that have really good mac and cheese on the side.
That's true.
You are so right. And that's a huge thing for people to order. I'm getting green beans. I'm a weirdo. Now, they say 54% eat macaroni and cheese weekly.
Oh, no.
See, no. And
That's
most
too
of
much.
them prefer it for dinner as opposed to lunch. The passion, of course, is real here. 56% say they would give up coffee or social media before giving up macaroni and cheese.
Wow. Oh, that's, you know what? That's called an addiction, I think, is what we call that.
Right. It's not worth the carbs to me or
No.
the calories, but maybe Brad Young's version with the lobster. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
On this day in history, by the way, 36 years ago, it was 1989 when Timothy Dalton made his it was his second and final appearance as James Bond with the release of the 16th Bond film, License to Kill. Who's your favorite Bond, Brad?
Sean Connery. Because,
Okay.
you know why? Because he likes his drinks shaken, not stirred.
That's true. Fred, you're a Sean Connery?
No, I think I'm a Roger Moore fan.
Oh, that's right. You like the fun Roger Moore. I still, of course, love Daniel Craig, who did it
Yes.
5 different times.
I know. Sue, my wife, she always loved Sean Connery, but when he came out of the ocean in Casino Royale.
Thank you. Can you hit the bell for me,
Hit
please,
the bell. When he walks out of the ocean, we were in the theater.
100%.
My wife leans over and said, "He's now my favorite Bond." I kid you not. Right there.
Okay, well, I'm with her. If she wants to come and watch that with me, I'm down.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yes. You know what I found out, though? I went in on this today because somebody named George Lazenby. And
Yes.
it may be Lazenby. Is it
Yes,
Lazen
no,
or
it's
Lazen?
Lazenby. And he, well, I've
it
always said
is?
Lazenby, but he was in the movie on His Majesty's Secret Service,
Yes.
okay? And there's a great line if you watch that movie. Okay, at the beginning, he followed Sean Connery, and there's a great scene on the beach where his girlfriend gets kidnapped, all right? And he's on the beach, and he does a Deadpool move. He picks up his girlfriend's shoes, and he looks right in the camera, and he says, "This never happened to the other guy."
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, and Telly Savalas is the bad guy in that movie. It's a fantastic movie.
Okay, when I went in on this today, that's really interesting. I have not, I've never seen that, but he was married to Pam Shriver, the tennis player.
Really, I didn't know that.
For several years, I guess 6 years, and they had some children, and now they got divorced, and now she takes care of him in his older age. They've kind of reunited. They're not married or anything, but I had no idea he was married to Pam Shriver.
I didn't either. But in the history of bad advice, the worst advice ever given by any human being is in the book of Job, where people told Job you should just curse God and die. Okay, that's the worst advice.
Yeah, that's not good.
The second worst advice was George Lazenby's agent, who told him, "James Bond will never be popular. You should not sign up for another movie."
Okay, I went in on that too, Brad, and apparently he thought it would ruin his career.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure what happened there, but I understand that would be a concern. I do get it, but that's why he only did it once.
He only did it once.
Well, Max reverted to HBO Max officially last week, thank goodness, 2 years after the really dumb change. What? By the way, Matt, are you like a James Bond guy? You know all this stuff.
I have a really soft spot in my heart for that movie because that was the first Bond movie I ever saw, and I've always loved it. I've always loved it. I've always loved the story of him because he had issues with Hollywood and
Yes,
executives and things
he
like
did.
that. He's got an insane story, so I've always been tied into that one. I was literally going to say before you even mentioned him, how come we're not giving any Lazenby respect, guys?
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, reportedly, HBO Max will be home to a Big Bang Theory spinoff that will follow Kevin Sussman's character, Stuart Bloom, the owner of the comic book shop. It will be called Stuart Fails to Save the Universe. And Chuck Lorre will be part of it, which kind of gives you hope if that was your thing, because he's a co-creator of the original show. But here's what I found out today. Also coming on HBO Max, July 18th, so this Friday, will be the first part of a 2-part Billy Joel documentary. And I cannot wait to see it. It's called Billy Joel and So It Goes. It will be on Max, 7 p.m. Central Time, so our time on Friday. And they say this thing is 5 hours long, so they're splitting it each into 2.5 hours.
That's good.
Part 2 will be Friday, July 25th at 7. And if you love Billy Joel, and you can Google it, they have let out a trailer for it. So if you want to watch that and you can see, I will totally watch that.
And he has such an interesting story, Sue, because as popular as he was, he's had his own personal traumas. He's had certainly many issues with his marriages, with some health struggles, with his alcohol, about whether or not he should even continue in the business.
Yeah, it'll be really good, I think.
Yeah, I'll watch it, I think. I loved his music. I've seen him a couple times. I think the last time, it might have been a long time ago, at the old arena.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I bet the sound in there was old arena-esque, which
very
makes us all
echoey,
teary.
yeah.
Yes. Ford is recalling about 850,000 vehicles from the 2021 to 2023 model years. Apparently, they have a defect that could cause the engine to suddenly stall while you're driving. That's not good. What's interesting is apparently Ford does not yet have a fix. It's working on it right now, and in the meantime, they've asked dealers to just not sell the affected vehicles. The problem is a faulty low-pressure fuel pump that can fail without warning.
Now, this part that's defective wasn't designed by the person who invented the Ford Pinto, was it?
I doubt that person is still employed. But that's just a guess on my part. But if you have something from 2021 to 2020, 850,000 vehicles, and they said in the story that 844,000 of those vehicles are in the United States. So, yeah, that's going to be a huge, huge deal.
Yes, big deal.
And if you do have something, Fred, that reminds me of your car. How is your car?
I had a successful weekend on Friday. It was returned to me. It had a crankshaft position counter sensor go out.
Oh, no.
Which is better than
an
alternator. That's right.
Yeah, because sensors are easier to fix.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that means your mechanic was right all along. The
you're right.
alternator was
yep,
fine.
He was right.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, it's good to know you can trust him. And finally, in Sue's news, we have today's random fact. Okay, the white dashed lane lines on the highway are each 10 feet long. Most people estimate them to be around 2 feet. But those things are 10 feet long with 30-foot gaps.
I would have said
them.
5 feet.
Yeah.
I would not have said 10 feet long.
Yes, it's a federal regulation.
Wow.
But nobody, I would not have guessed that in a million years. 10 feet?
Never.
No way.
No way.
And that's it for Sue's News.
Thank you, Sue. You know, every time you hear Sue's News, you'll learn something new. And Sue, as always, thank you. Hey, coming up after the break, we've got Tim Fitch, friend of the show, Tim Fitch, next, 97.1 FM Talk.
I'm Chad Robinson with Your Money Now. On Wall Street, stocks were higher with the Dow gaining 88 points. The S&P 500 was up slightly by 8, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq set a fresh record up by 54. President Trump said the U.S. will impose 30% tariffs on the European Union and Mexico starting on August 1st. Leaders of the EU and Mexico said they intend to keep talking with the Trump administration this month in an attempt to agree on a lower rate. The Wall Street Journal reports Kraft Heinz is planning to spin off a large chunk of its grocery business, effectively undoing a 2015 merger that's now widely regarded as a strategic blunder. Anonymous sources say that the new entity would take many Kraft products with it and could be valued up to $20 billion. The split could happen in a matter of weeks. Crude oil futures for August are falling more than 2.2%, sitting below $67 a barrel. That's Your Money Now.
ZipRecruiter is the place. ZipRecruiter is the place for talented teachers, savvy software developers, and master mixologists. ZipRecruiter is the place where you meet all these people and more. That's because ZipRecruiter is the place for job seekers who are looking for new opportunities. In fact, ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day, so you can find the right candidates right away. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the place for skilled skydiving instructors, accomplished airbrush artists, and proficient pediatricians. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter to hire, you're missing out. ZipRecruiter is the place that's so confident it can make your hiring easier that it lets you try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. So if you want the right candidates for all your roles, ZipRecruiter is the place to go. Try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
Your home sold guaranteed, or I'll buy it. Hi, I'm Gloria Liu, broker owner at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And for over 20 years, I've been getting my home sellers the most money for their home and selling faster than the average agent. So when you're ready to sell your home or have questions, call me.
For years now, I've been telling you about my friend and trusted realtor, Gloria Liu, and why you should call. Hey, it's Mark Cox. Fact is, when I needed to sell my home, my only call was to Gloria Liu, and she delivered. Gloria exceeded our expectations, and that's why I strongly recommend you call, especially in this shifting market. No matter what happens, you're guaranteed to sell your home at 100% of market value, or Gloria will pay the difference. Call today. Get an upfront written guarantee and start packing. Sell with certainty and for 100% of market value, or Gloria will pay you the difference. Call 314-325-6888 or visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com. That's GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Gloria and seller must agree on price and possession date.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
The time is 4:32. This update is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
For details and a list of all station contest rules, visit www.971talk.com/rules. If you missed anything, podcast The Mark Reardon Show at 971talk.com.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young sitting in today. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're having a great time here in the studio, and I hope that you are having a good time listening to the program today. I know you're going to have a great time listening to Tim Fitch. You know, friend of the show, Tim Fitch, former St. Louis County Police Chief, former St. Louis County Councilman, a man with a longer resume than George Herbert Walker Bush. Fitch, good to talk to you, buddy. Well, hang on a second. We are we there? Okay. Good to talk to you, Mr. Fitch.
Good to talk to you, Brad.
Oh, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you. And I wanted to reach out to you to talk to you today, Tim, because there's a couple of things that are going on in the police realm right now, one of which is in St. Louis City. We're going to talk about the police there. But here I want to play you a quote, though, first from New York. Because this is a problem in New York. It's also a problem in the city of St. Louis, and that is police officers who just don't want to work there. Here's what Paul Morrow said. He's a former New York City police officer and a Fox News contributor. He said this.
Having been there 26 years, the bottom line is what gets you out of bed, what makes you take that job, what makes you run towards gunshots, whatever it is you run towards, is the idea that you wear the white hat. You're the good guy. You take that away, it becomes a paycheck, and you make a lot more money elsewhere. So you can move to Florida, Carolinas, you get a nice condo, you're going to be appreciated, you're not worried about being victimized. Oh, I made a mistake today, I'm going to end up on the cover of the newspapers, and then maybe I'm in the witness box because they're prosecuting me. That's the thing that keeps them up at night. You take that, the cops want to do the job. You just got to let them.
Tim Fitch, what do you think about that sentiment and how that might apply to officers who are currently working in the city of St. Louis?
Agree 100%. If you talk to any of the city officers, many of them are there, staying there because they're close to their pension age. But some of the newer ones, after they kind of get it out of their system when you're new, like, really, why am I here? If I'm not appreciated, people don't want me doing what I was trained to do and educated to do. Why am I wasting my time here? Now, I will tell you this, Brad. I do think you're starting to see a little bit of improvement, and particularly in the city of St. Louis with the new administration and the new efforts that we saw over the 4th of July weekend where officers were encouraged to do their jobs. Officers don't want to be babysitters. They want to enforce the law. They want to do it fairly. And if they're allowed to do their job, they'll take care of the crime issues with sufficient resources. So I think you're going to see a little bit, if this continues, to where officers are allowed to do their job and they're supported when things go bad. And let's face it, bad things happen in police work.
Right.
It's not pretty when officers have to use force. It's certainly not pretty when they have to use their firearm. And that's one of the big issues is all those officers are afraid of being criticized for doing their jobs. But if they get support from the administration and from the elected officials, I still think I have good hopes for the city of St. Louis to turn around.
Yeah, I was, I was pleased too. And I thought with that changeover in administration, I wasn't anticipating there to be an improvement because, frankly, Kara Spencer was previously part, at least philosophically, was part of the same kind of a defund the police kind of a mentality. But yet what I've seen in terms of actions since she's taken office has been one of more supporting police because hopefully, I mean, I haven't talked to Kara Spencer about this, but hopefully she realizes that we can't solve any of the other problems in the city with low unemployment or the lack of jobs or the fact that people are fleeing the city to go to the county or the lack of businesses who are locating in the city of St. Louis. None of those problems can be solved until we solve the crime problem, and perhaps she sees supporting the police here as part of the solution as opposed to the prior administration that saw supporting the police as part of the problem.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen her standing next to the police chief the day after the 4th and talking about supporting them. We need more of this. This will bring things under control downtown. She didn't, but at least she wasn't critical of it.
Yes.
And I think some of the aldermen would like to be critical of it, but when you see success, it's hard to be critical. So I think they need to stay at it. They need to stay enforcing the law in St. Louis. And I think the chief may actually want to look at reaching out to his suburban counterparts and say, right now, I'm hundreds of officers short. I need some help for a while. We have excess funds. Can we pay your officers overtime to come to the city of St. Louis and help us with our mission in the city? And that's to keep it safe. I think that's something that maybe he needs to take a look at.
Yeah, and I'm also hopeful that the governor also participates, as prior governors have, in terms of assisting the city by having, Missouri State patrol officers maybe patrolling the highways, freeing up police officers to do other work. But I want to pivot, though, to a different topic. Of course, we're talking to Tim Fitch, friend of the show, former St. Louis County Police Chief, former St. Louis County Councilman. And Tim, one of the things that I've seen in terms of a pivot for the city happened over the 4th of July, and we saw the city announcing, particularly Chief Tracy announcing, that if they arrest children in the city over the 4th of July for using fireworks or possessing guns, when the parents come to pick them up, we're going to charge the parents for their failure to watch over their kids, their failure to allow their kids, or failure to prevent, rather, their kids from doing this activity. And it's called contributing to the delinquency of a minor. What do you think about that approach as trying to do something else, something innovative to try to control some of the violent crime that we're seeing in the city?
Yeah, I've got no problem with that, but what will be interesting to see is how this is adjudicated.
Yes.
So what happens at, juvenile court time or family court time or, that type of thing? Do these charges suddenly go away? What happens with them? Are they really going to be held accountable? I think that remains to be seen, but I do think it's a step in the right direction.
Now, legally, I've broken this down before over on the KMOX side. Legally, there's some issues with this. When I've looked at the city code, it's very vague. It doesn't. It talks very vague about allowing children to participate in activities that could be harmful both morally and physically. And there's a constitutional doctrine called void for vagueness. And that means, as you well know, that means if a statute is vague, then it's hard to use that to prosecute people because people aren't being told what's expected of them if the statute itself is vague. And I do see the possibility of some of these charges not withstanding constitutional muster because of the vagueness. But I'm all in favor of the attempt and trying it at this point because we got to do something innovative because this is a problem, not just for the city area, but for the entire state and region. And I applaud the city. I applaud Tracy or whoever invented this idea of doing this pivot for trying something innovative to control the problem.
And the other thing you have to look at, and that's what I was talking about, let's see how this is adjudicated, is what about the mother, the single mother who has to work? She's at work, and she tells her kid, her 14-year-old, you need to stay home. Don't leave the house. And then they leave the house anyway, and they get involved in these situations. And now the mother is being tagged with a crime. It'll be interesting to see, do we really want to hold them responsible for that? What parent out there who now has grown children hadn't found out at some point, hey, I snuck out, I did this, I did that. I think all of us have children, especially grown children now.
Right, but there's a difference, though, between sneaking out, which I did a lot. I snuck out of my house all the time. There's a difference between sneaking out of the house when your parents maybe are watching TV or something, and being told, you're 14, I'm leaving, I don't want you to leave the house. I mean, don't you see those as two different situations?
Yeah, I mean, you're really talking about knowingly. Did they know their child was going to be involved in such conduct?
Correct. Exactly.
So I think they're going to have to try to prove that they knowingly allowed it. I think they're going to have to try to prove that to make a case stick.
And it's always, Tim, of course, we're talking to Tim Fitch. It's always easy to point out things that are negative. But I'm glad that you right here, you and I in our conversation, have pointed out something innovative here that the city's doing, something good that the city is doing. And you even pointed out that perhaps there's a little bit more support for the police in the city. Are you seeing any kinds of improvements, or what are you seeing right now going on in the county? Because the county isn't immune from having problems. What are you seeing, good or bad, in terms of the county?
Well, the good news is just last week I was at a retirement celebration in police headquarters in Clayton, and I asked the person that's in charge of recruiting for the county police, how's it going compared to the last couple of years? He said, great. We are seeing significant turnaround, significant applicants, people that want to be police officers, people that want to do police work. That's the best news I've heard out of a recruiter in a long time.
Oh, and that is good news, because we want police officers, just like that clip I played at the beginning of our conversation, Tim. We want police officers who want to do good. That's what we want. It's good for us to have police officers who are motivated by the right values. And what I'm hearing from you is we're seeing an uptick in that.
No doubt about it.
Fantastic.
I like I said, I see that pendulum, in my 63 years on this earth, I've seen that pendulum switch back and forth.
Yes.
Almost 40 years in law enforcement, and right now it's heading in the right direction.
Fantastic. Tim, I know you've got a very busy schedule. Thanks for hanging out with us here on 97.1 FM Talk.
Anytime, Brad. Take care.
Yeah, there's an interesting, I studied in law school that there was this concept called the broken windows idea, which is if you allow windows to be broken, it fosters more crime. And my hope is that we can get to the point in the city where we follow that broken windows concept, where we're not just talking about trying to reduce murders, but we're talking about reducing minor crimes that teaches people, look, if you do minor crimes, you're going to jail. If you do major crimes, you're really going to jail. Let's see if we can move in that direction. Brad Young sitting in here for Mark Reardon today. We've got more. In fact, Frank Cusumano next on 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Wow, we've still got that accident westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker. The right lane is blocked. Westbound 70 slowing at Jennings Station Road at 141 at K and again out at Wentzville. But that's just moderate volume. Pretty heavy traffic on southbound 270, especially at Olive. Westbound 40, some moderate volume through Chesterfield Valley, and then at Lake St. Louis Boulevard. We look good if you're headed to the bridges downtown. Looking really good through there. But there's an accident reported on eastbound 64 past 25th Street that's causing just a little bit of a delay. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Biggest choice in home restoration is, who do you trust with your home, your most valued asset? Few can match Banner Construction's experience and dedication to excellence. Banner is an elite preferred James Hardy contractor and Pella Window specialist. Restoration is a one-time opportunity to have Banner's design team show you architectural options to make your home the neighborhood showcase. Call for a free consultation, 314-569-1050. Now hiring qualified carpenters.
Speeding while driving gives you less time to react. Another car could turn out in front of you. A pedestrian could be walking their dog. Follow the speed limit to keep them safe. Speeding catches up with you. Paid for by NHTSA.
This summer, while you stay cool, our first responders stay on the front lines. The St. Louis First Responder Canteen is there to keep them hydrated and supported. Find out how you can help by visiting 971talk.com/talkinaction.
If you missed anything, podcast The Mark Reardon Show at 971talk.com.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young in today for Mark. And joining us, you know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Frank Cusumano, sports director, KSDK, Channel 5. Frank, as always, good to talk to you, buddy.
Good to be with you, Brad. Hope you're doing well, sir.
I am. And also, I want to talk about some Cardinals stuff. I want to talk about Blues and maybe some City SC, but Cardinals. As I looked it up today, it looks like the team is a few games over 500, maybe 5, and we're here at the All-Star break. So the Cardinals are doing better than they were expected to do, but what trends are you seeing that makes you believe either we will or will not be able to make the playoffs this year?
I think – look, out of the All-Star break, they have a very weak schedule. Now, we've seen with weak opponents like the Pirates, things can go the other way. So I think these first, 6 games, out of the break with Arizona and Colorado will go a long way to determine what they do at the deadline. I don't think they're as talented as teams like the Giants, Mets, and Brewers, who they'll eventually, have to beat a couple of those teams out to get a wild card. You never know because this team has surprised us, and being 5 games over 500 is definitely exceeding expectations for what we had at the beginning. So I tell you what, though, Brett, if I'm in charge and they just kind of play mediocre baseball until the deadline, I'm inclined to trade everybody in terms of guys at the end of their contract who you could get value back for. We're talking about Ryan Helsley. You could get some great assets back.
Yes.
I think you could also get for Steven Matz and Phil Maton, who's been one of the best middle relievers. I mean, these are major assets that contending teams would love to have. And I think if you look at the big picture, and it's tough for fans and for even managers to look that way, to think that way, because they want the best players on their team right now. I just interviewed Tony La Russa, and he said it's something that fans have a tough time understanding, and sometimes guys in uniform have a tough time understanding. But that's why we have general managers and assistant general managers to look at the big picture.
Well, speaking of that big picture, John Mozeliak, of course, is passing the torch to Chaim Bloom. Do you expect any immediate changes once that happens? And what do you expect Bloom to do differently than Mozeliak has been doing?
Well, usually when you take over as a GM, you'd like to bring in your own people. And he has brought in some people, in the minor leagues to oversee some stuff. I think that Ali Marmol has done a good job. And I don't think anybody would deny he's done a good job. So I'd like to think that he's going to get another shot. But sometimes, in business and in sports, new guy in charge, he wants to bring in his own people.
Sure.
I will say this, I don't know if you're going to get to it, but last night was the Major League Draft. And, the Cardinals are 28th in strikeouts. They don't strike anybody out, especially their starting pitchers. They're all pitch to contact guys who don't throw extremely hard. They picked this guy from Tennessee named Liam Doyle, Brad. He starts off games throwing 98. He touches 100. I mean, he's insane. 42% of the hitters that faced him this year struck out. So he's the 5th pick in the draft for a reason, and I think the Cardinals may, if he doesn't get hurt, have a guy who could be their number 1 starter one day. Liam Doyle, remember the name.
Wow, remember the name. Speaking of the draft, how do you evaluate the way the Blues came through the draft this year?
Well, I wish I could give you like a real educated analysis, but I just don't know enough about 18-year-old kids playing hockey in Canada. So
I understand. I get it. That's refreshing. People call me all the time. They ask me for stuff during my day job, and I own up to it when I say, you know what, I have no idea, but I'll look into it.
Yeah, all I do know about the Blues offseason is that they have – I can't remember a time in 32 years of covering the Blues, 33 years, that they've had so many really talented guys between like 18 and 25. So if we could be patient, I think there's a great chance for this team to really make some long playoff runs in the near future.
We're talking to Frank Cusumano, sports director, KSDK Channel 5. And I also want to ask you, though, about City SC. This team, changes head coaches more often than some people change their clothes. Has that been part of the volatility with the team, or when you change coaches so often, I just imagine from a player's perspective, you're getting different input, and then this guy's gone and somebody else is in. I mean, what's the key to trying to create some stability with City SC?
Yeah, I don't think they ever should have fired Bradley Carnell. I mean, the guy had one of the best first years in MLS history as a coach with an expansion team. That was unbelievable. They pulled the trigger much too quickly on him. Then they brought in the wrong guy. And I think, though, with them, with City SC, it's a combination of not enough talent, like kind of average talent. And then the problem is some of their better talent has been hurt. And, you can't go with your like 4 or 5 of your best players injured. So that was like a perfect storm for them. Now, last night they did win. It was their first victory in 43 days.
Oh.
A lot has happened in this country in 43 days. You can do a lot of things in 43 days. So that was like a 10 or 11 match winless streak that they ended last night. And, I do like the way, that they played, and the coach said all week long, we're having our best week of practice. So this David Critchley, Brad, you'd get a kick out of him. He's the head coach. Really, he's like a Norman Vincent Peale meets Tony Robbins, power of positive thinking guy.
Well, I've seen him. I've seen clips of him because every night, I'm watching Channel 5 News. I've seen clips of him, but, I will never look at him the same way now, thanks to you.
Yeah, you'd be motivated by him. You'd be better at your day job. Well, I don't know if you can get any better at radio, though.
Yeah, that's you're way too kind. Hey, one of the things though I wanted to check with you before we wind up the segment is this. We talked about the struggles with the Cardinals putting butts in seats at Busch Stadium, and yet when I look at City SC, even though the team's been struggling as you just outlined, the team support and the crowd support still seems to be there with City SC.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, last night, the game was technically a sellout. I don't think they had that many people in the building, but still, it was a really good crowd. I was talking to Andy Van Slyke today about the Cardinal crowds. What's amazing is like the Colorado Rockies, who were like the worst team in the history of baseball, they're drawing more in Colorado than we are in St. Louis. So I think there was just so much like discontent with the organization in the off season because they didn't do anything. But the fact that the team has played relatively well, maybe we'll draw a little bit better. But that's amazing when the Colorado Rockies are outdrawing the St. Louis Cardinals, and they stink.
Yeah, stink isn't a strong enough word, and the FCC won't allow us to use the word that's strong enough. But yeah. I'm a season ticket holder, and I don't see every game, but I'm at a lot of games. And I know that what I'm seeing anecdotally is certainly more excitement and more butts in the seats. But listen, at the end of the day, I know that winning produces excitement. And if the Cardinals have this weaker schedule after the All-Star break, I do expect there to be more butts in the seats once the Cardinals hopefully start ticking up in the win column.
Yeah, and they have so many great people in that organization. The guy in charge of the tickets is Joe Strom, who's been there for like 3 decades. I mean, he works like a dog. The experience, as you know, as a season ticket holder, there's nothing better than going to a Cardinal game. I absolutely love it.
I really
hope they draw better and they make a run. Maybe maybe they get so good they can't make a deal at the deadline, but I kind of doubt it.
Well, that's Frank Cusumano. You heard it here. And what's the name? One more time. The guy, the guy that throws 100 miles an hour that we just picked up. What's his name?
Remember the name Liam Doyle.
Liam Doyle.
Yeah.
I'm writing it down and putting FC next to it for Frank Cusumano. Frank, great to talk to you again, my friend.
Good to be with you, Brad. Thank you, sir.
Anytime. KSDK Sports Director Frank Cusumano. I know I still enjoy going to Cardinals games, and I like it better this year than I did last year. And let me tell you why. Last year, and I think this is really the case, last year, me, like so many other people, just got the idea that maybe the Cardinals the management isn't trying to put the best product on the field. And I never at any point blamed Marmol for that. I blamed management. And it's interesting. I was at opening day this year, and John Mozeliak got booed. And I've never heard that before, ever on opening day. And yet he was. And I had a friend of mine from out of town who went to a Cardinals game and then called me and talked to me about it. And he said, why was there nobody there? And I said, well, my opinion is, again, not that the team stinks, because they don't. They're 5 games over 500. They're still in a playoff run. They could easily make the playoffs. But if you feel like the team isn't supporting you, then the feeling is, why should I support the team? If they're not going to support me, why should I support them? And yet this year, as opposed to last year, I am seeing more support. I hope it continues. Brad Young sitting in for Mark Reardon today. We'll have more after this on the conservative voice of St. Louis, 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Well, crews have been working with an accident on westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker, so just past Hampton, for quite some time. That right lane and right shoulder are still blocked, and we still have a jam behind it that goes back past Kings Highway. Also slow, southbound 55 as you head toward Bates in the construction zone. There was an accident reported southbound 270 near Olive. Still some slow-moving traffic in that area. Westbound 64, some moderate volume through Chesterfield Valley, and it picks up again, Highway N out through 70. 70 westbound, moderate volume at Jennings Station Road, and again at Wentzville. If you're headed into Illinois, we really do look pretty good. No major issues. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Don't get lulled into believing the IRS is getting soft. It's just the opposite. Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. We are being told by IRS collection officers that their higher-ups are demanding that they get more aggressive than ever. So don't ignore them any longer. Level up. If you have unfiled returns, unpaid taxes, levies, or liens, call the Lance Story Law Firm today and let us get between you and the IRS. We'll protect your rights, including your right to appeal or even your right to take the IRS to tax court. Remember, IRS problems are legal problems, and they need to be handled by an expert attorney team who's done it for decades. So call the Lance Story Law Firm today. We're local. Our office is right here in St. Louis, or visit Lance, DRURY, law.com to schedule your free consultation with your local tax resolution law firm, the Lance Story Law Firm, 314-260-6120.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
KFTK FM Florissant.
An Odyssey station.
Can move forward. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Education Secretary Linda McMahon reacting after the Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision lifted a lower court order allowing the plan to dismantle the Education Department move ahead.
This lifts the handcuffs off of what we've been trying to do, which really is to get education back to the states where the president believes it does belong. The best education is that closest to the student.
On Fox's The Story with Martha McCallum, the High Court did not explain its decision, but in dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote her colleagues were enabling what she called legally questionable action on a part of the administration. President Trump is boosting military aid for Ukraine in a new partnership with European allies.
NATO allies are agreeing to purchase billions of dollars in American-made weapons to quickly transfer to Ukraine in the latest move to respond to Russia's war against the country.
Just so you know, they're paying for everything. We're not paying anymore. We have an ocean separating us. I said we have a problem. We make the best stuff, but we can't keep doing this.
President Trump, sitting alongside NATO's Secretary General, also voiced growing frustration with Russia's President Vladimir Putin for not negotiating a ceasefire. The president says if there is not a deal to end the war in 50 days, he'll impose secondary tariffs of 100% on Russia's trading partners.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. A firefighter says inadequate staffing hindered the response to a fire last night at an assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts. At least 9 people have died, ranging in age from 61 to 86, and 30 hurt.
You know, it's horrifying to think about what happened in the middle of the night in the dark. You know, people just scrambling as best they could to get out.
Governor Maura Healey, the cause of the fire remains under investigation. America is listening to Fox News.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZzzQuil Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZzzQuil Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
No one wants to leave behind stress for their family. That's why a trust or a will is so important. Without one, your assets might go to the wrong people or leave out loved ones. Also, probate is long, expensive, and often avoidable with a revocable trust. Trustandwill.com makes it simple to create a personalized estate plan. A trust or will provides clarity and peace of mind. Get 20% off on your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/radio.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
A quiet summertime evening. It's warm. It's humid in the 80s. Partly cloudy skies. 74 for the low. Tuesday, partly sunny. It's kind of hot and humid. 89 for the high. Probably more humid than the heat. However, there will be an uptick in scattered thunderstorms on Tuesday. Some with heavy downpours of rain and lightning. Should quiet down quickly Tuesday night. Wednesday and Thursday, sunny but spot afternoon storms. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. I've been checking out all of the comments on YouTube. If you'd like to participate in the show, I read every one. I try to comment here and there when I can. If you go there, it's very easy. Go to youtube.com, search for the Mark Reardon Show live, and boom, you're there. And then you can comment on the show. I'll comment during breaks, and you get to be a part of this show moving forward. Speaking of being a part of the show, Peter Doran is an adjunct senior fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and I wanted to reach out to him. Thank you, Peter Doran, for joining us here this afternoon on 97.1 FM Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you because one of the quandaries that I've had, I'm your classic conservative, and when Russia invaded Ukraine, I thought very strongly that it was in the best interest of democracies worldwide to support Ukraine in this because it would help prevent more war in Russia. or rather in Europe. It would help lessen an arch enemy of the United States, and whatever resources they waste fighting in Ukraine are resources not available to invade Europe or impact NATO countries, including the United States. And so there was a time where we weren't really supporting them, but I've seen a change, and this is what I want you to hear. This is what Donald Trump said, I believe just yesterday, on supporting Ukraine.
We make the best, and we're going to be sending the best to NATO, and in some cases to maybe, at Mark's suggestion, if we go to Germany, where they're going to send early on missiles, and they'll be replaced, and NATO is going to take care of it.
So, Peter Doran, what's bringing about this change? Because earlier we didn't see a lot of excitement from the Trump administration about supporting Ukraine. Now it seems like that support is growing. What's changed?
Well, what you described initially was the definition of peace through strength. The only problem is that Vladimir Putin was playing a very different kind of game with Trump. And for the last 6 months, since the start of his administration, Donald Trump has been giving Putin the benefit of the doubt. And today, Putin, well, he ran out of road. So what happened today was major. Essentially, Trump threw down the gauntlet against Vladimir Putin. He threw down the gauntlet against these tactics of delay he's been seeing from the Russians. 2 big points that are going to be game changers. Yes, there is going to be a major deal with NATO whereby Trump sets up a win-win-win. Ukraine gets the weapons it needs to defend itself. Europe supplies those weapons and then buys them from the United States. Taxpayers are not going to be footing the bill. American industry is going to benefit. And also, Trump added a twist, and this is a big one. It blew Putin's hair back, what little he has left. It says in 50 days, think about it, in 50 days, Putin has got to either make a deal or he's going to face major economic consequences. No one's going to buy his oil and gas due to something Trump calls secondary tariffs. These are all major moves. Putin was not expecting them. It shows that Trump is clearly tired of playing games with Putin, and he's going to have to reconsider his endgame strategy.
We're talking to Peter Doran. He's an adjunct senior fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And Peter, I've got a theory here. And I want to run it past you. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong. But I'm putting on my political science hat. I studied political science in college and before I went to law school. But here's my theory. The fact that there's a little bit of a convoluted nature where we're not just giving weapons directly to Ukraine now, as we did in the past. We're giving it through NATO. I suspect that there was 2 reasons for this. One, you've already outlined, the financial aspect. We get paid back by countries in Europe who aren't necessarily doing their fair share. That helps us. That gives Europe more stake in the game. But here's my second theory, and this is what I want your opinion on. By giving more weapons that are funneled through Europe and through NATO instead of directly from the U.S. to Ukraine, does that then create a greater sense of accountability for Europe? In other words, Russia can't just say the U.S. is funding Ukraine, but it spreads it around to Europe to create, lessen rather, the burden on the United States when it comes to Russia's position. Maybe I'm being a little convoluted there, but I'm trying to see here that Trump is getting Europe into the game more than if we simply just gave Ukraine weapons.
And we can sum it up in one word: stakeholders. He is now really making the Europeans stakeholders in the effort to support Ukraine. Now, let's be fair. The Europeans have done a lot to help Ukraine since the expanded invasion really started rolling back in 2022. But a lot of Americans, especially in Congress, were saying, why is it that we are spending so much money in support of Ukraine? Now, I can make a great case for that. Others have as well. What Trump's deal does today is it sets up the Europeans for success, and it sets them up to be bigger stakeholders than they've ever been before. Now, think about it. You're a country like Germany. You've got a lot of Patriot missile interceptors in your arsenal. These are not offensive weapons. These are the things that can shoot down Russian cruise missiles and ICBMs that are targeting Ukrainian hospitals and apartment buildings, civilian centers. Now you can defend your cities and critical infrastructure with the bullets to hit a bullet out of the sky. We're running low on those, and And so and Germany has a lot. So why not shift Germany's arsenal to the Ukrainians that they can use, and then replenish Germany's supply with new Patriots, higher, more sophisticated versions of those Patriots, and the Germans will pay us for it, and American industry will benefit from it.
Wow,
this is Trump's plan.
Yeah, that's like 3D chess here that's going on because
it's really nice
because it's a win-win-win, as you've already articulated. We're talking to Peter Doran, adjunct senior fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and I've got another. I like to spitball here, Peter, and that's this. We heard Trump say, I believe it was today, where he said that we're going to be giving, obviously, through the NATO plan that we've already talked about, but more long-range missiles. And there was a hint that maybe there could be some JASSM missiles. That's the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile, which has a range, I'm going by memory here, but a range of somewhere in the 400-mile range, which would put Moscow in range of Ukraine. Are we going to, do you foresee the United States in this process providing to Ukraine longer range munitions?
Well, that's what the scuttlebutt is. So today, sitting next to the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, President Trump was talking to the cameras. And if you've ever seen President Trump really engage, he's a bit freewheeling, and sometimes he might not hit every single point or detail. So immediately after he was done with his presser today, the White House started leaking quietly, yes, this includes long-range precision strike weapons as the kind you just described. And here's why that's important. Under the Biden administration, we were too scared of our own shadow. We were allowing the Russians to deter us through their threats instead of calling Putin's bluff. And that's an important point.
Yes.
So the Biden administration restricted the Ukrainians from using weapons that we supplied to them from actually hitting Russian territory. So all of these attacks you've seen recently, they've been from jerry-rigged Ukrainian drones or other efforts. So now this is a major game changer. And I must stress, the Ukrainians have been very restrained in only hitting military targets, unlike Russia's unrestrained attacks on their civilian targets. But more importantly, if you're a Russian citizen, the war is going to come home to you. The war is going to become really real very quickly. When you open your front door, your house is okay, but the local petroleum refinery is lighting up the night sky. And at that point, the war, which may have seemed a long way away, is now very close to home. And you have to start asking yourself, what the heck is President Trump doing? And that is the kind of message that the Ukrainians can send through this change.
Oh, Peter Doran, I'm going to keep talking. We're supposed to take a break here, but I'm going to go a little bit longer because I'm truly enjoying talking to you on this subject. But when you talk about Ukraine, though, I mean, talk about a country of MacGyvers. I was reading about last week. There was a drone crew in Ukraine that takes Pringles cans and turns them into munitions under hanging and having those Pringle cans with explosives slung underneath these drones. I mean, we're seeing an entire new way of using offensive and defensive munitions in a way that's like the Amazon or the SpaceX of the defense business, because these things are dirt cheap and yet they're amazingly effective on the battlefield.
I think SpaceX is a really good analogy. I'll leave your listeners and you with one something to think about. It's not just the lower end of the tech tree; it's at the very top. So you talked about jerry-rigging drones with the Pringle cans. Yes, absolutely. The Ukrainians have done this with practically everything they've gotten their hands on, up to and including some of our most sophisticated weapons systems like the Patriot system. I've heard from trainers that the Ukrainians are doing things with our technology that we didn't even think was possible.
Amazing.
That's why they're such a valuable partner to us.
Yeah, I saw one video where Ukrainians were given AIM missiles, air-to-air missiles, which wouldn't fit on their Russian jets, but they rigged them on their jets, and they were running them from an iPad that was ducked into the cockpit to launch AIM missiles from Soviet fighters. And I thought, this is the kind of innovation that we need in this country once this war is over. If we're going to be serious about standing up to Russia and China and Iran and North Korea, we need that kind of innovation exploding here in the United States, which leads me to my final question. Do we see that? Has the United States finally grasped? We see the collaborative combat air system. We're seeing this emphasis now. Pete Hegseth came out with drones, a drone video this week saying how we're emphasizing drones. Is the United States the huge monolith of the United States, the ship of the Defense Department? Is it finally turning into a cheaper innovation as opposed to just billion-dollar projects?
Well, it shows two things. One, that the Ukrainians have their back to the wall, and when you have your back to the wall and you're defending your family, you're defending your home, nothing's going to ever stop you. And if that means jerry-rigging the world, they're going to do it. It also shows that we are better having Ukraine on our team than to throwing them away to the gentle mercies of Vladimir Putin, who wants to destroy them. Those are the stakes for this effort.
Wow. Hey, Peter Doran, we know that you're with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. How can people find you online or read some of the material that you put out, which is excellent analysis of what we're seeing unfolding right now in Europe?
Thanks. You can find me on X at Peter B. Doran, D-O-R-A-N, and keep an eye out for the New York Post. I've got a piece on just this topic coming out in a couple hours.
I'll be looking at it tonight. Peter Doran, hey, thanks for joining us this afternoon here on 97.1 FM Talk St. Louis.
Glad to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Great to talk to you, too. Hey, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, I've got about 14 stories here in my stack of stuff. So let me find something. I promise you it'll be worth your wait, and I also promise you it'll be worth everything you pay to hear it. Brad Young sitting in for Mark Reardon on 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Westbound 70 looks a little bit slow there at Jennings Station Road. 64 still lining up near Kings Highway out past McCausland. And there's a little bit of volume, too, southbound 170, especially at Brentwood Boulevard. Southbound 270, some moderate volume on either side of Olive. And then we had an accident reported southbound approaching 44, but it's not a serious jam, just a little slow through there. Now, out west, 6440, a slow go, Lake St. Louis Boulevard, out through the 70 split. 70 a little slow out there as well. But if you are headed in from Illinois or to Illinois, things look great. Really no delays downtown. This report brought to you by Point with an E Pest Control. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Point Pest Control is reminding you it's time to spray for mosquitoes. How can something that tiny interrupt your outside gatherings? Have Point Pest Control spray today so your next outside gathering is mosquito-free. 636-798-0023. Mention Annie to save an additional 10%. PointPestControl.com.
Hey, it's Annie with my friend Stewie, and you know Stewart's American Mortgage and the Bagel Loan gets you your mortgage or your refinance at no closing costs. And I have Stewie with me right now. You're all about saving people money. Fiscal responsibility is really in right now, and you've got something up your sleeve for these folks.
You know what, Annie? Some people like to get better cash flow. Other people just want to pay off all their debt. So we're going to do something very, very unique. In Scotland, it was traditional to paint the door red once you paid off your mortgage. So we're going to give you the Red Bagel Challenge. If you refinance with us and you consolidate your debt and you get your mortgage paid off in half the period of time remaining, we're going to give you a $1,000 bonus at the end of that term.
Well, Stewie's all about helping you build your wealth and build equity, and the Bagel Loan is another way to do it. Remember, no closing costs with the Bagel Loan. Reach out to Stewie directly with 314-324-4440. That's 314-324-4440. You can Google Bagel Loan for more information, NMLS number 226715.
Good to go. The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Welcome back to the Mark Reardon Show. Brad Young sitting in today. And as you probably know, I'm the legal analyst here on 97.1 FM Talk. And one of the things that I follow very closely are Supreme Court decisions. And the Supreme's issued an opinion today that I want to look at just for a moment. And the issue was this. The Department of Education was looking to let go approximately 1,300 employees. And of course, a judge, I believe it was out of Massachusetts, a federal judge in Massachusetts, issued an order barring the Defense Department, barring the Trump administration from letting go any employees at the Department of Education. Now, I looked at the judge's order, the initial district judge's order. And essentially, the judge concluded that since the Trump administration, their true intention here is to dismantle the Department of Education, therefore, we're not going to let the Trump administration let go any employees, and issued an injunction. An emergency appeal was filed up to the Supreme Court, and the Supremes issued an opinion just this morning, 6-3, stating that the Trump administration could proceed with the letting go of 1,300 employees. Now, I also looked briefly at the decisions that were filed in dissent. And that was from Justice Kagan, Justice Brown, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and also Justice Sotomayor. And in their dissent, they essentially argued that the executive branch cannot be allowed to let anyone go from the government unless it's authorized by Congress. Now, it's a 19-page dissent, and since I've been hanging out with you guys here since 3, I haven't read it all. I've only read a few excerpts during the commercial breaks. But let that sink in for a moment, that the executive branch cannot let go any employees unless it's authorized by Congress. Now, I'm a firm believer in the 3 branches of government, that there's a check and a balance. It's the best design of any government that's ever been conceived by humankind, ever. It works. And we have got our issues, we've got our problems, but it works. But in this dissent, arguing that the executive branch can't lay off anyone, let me put this in real terms for you. The last time you were ever at a government agency, every time you've dealt with a government agency, did you really feel that they had not enough employees? Or did you feel like maybe the people there weren't working well enough? And that's one argument against allowing it, because we know from the DEI issue that there were tens of thousands of employees of the federal government whose sole job was to make bagels and spread cream cheese whenever they had DEI meetings, talking about how important they all were in the functioning government by emphasizing the hiring of one class of people over the hiring of another, which the last time I checked, that's called discrimination. And yet the dissent here at the Supreme Court didn't think that the Trump administration could let go any employees. And here's the problem I have with this from a bigger perspective. Think about education. Our educational system is geared towards local control. That's why you have all of these schools that have school board districts. They're empowered. They're paid for by our local taxes. They're paid for in part by state taxes, and there's state and local control over school districts. Why do we need a Department of Education at all? I mean, essentially, this is inherently a state and a local matter, not a federal one. In fact, if you look at the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the 10th Amendment essentially says this, that the Constitution reserves powers not delegated to the federal government to the states. So in other words, any powers that are not enumerated in the Constitution for the federal government, whatever that might be, things that we as the Founding Fathers can't even envision, whatever is not specifically given to the federal government is reserved for the states. Now, I've read the Constitution front to back countless times. There's nothing in there about educating our children. Zero. Nada. Nothing. And so by the wording of the 10th Amendment, if that power is not specifically given to the federal government, then it's reserved for the states. So why do we even have a Department of Education? If you were looking at, and if the 3 dissenters at the Supreme Court took the time to read down to the 10th Amendment, they would have had an aha moment. Aha, wait a minute. This isn't even a federal government function anyway, So what's the harm in allowing the federal government to reduce the size of an agency that shouldn't exist in the first place? Let that sink in. And yet the three dissenters, Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Kagan, didn't bother to read down to the 10th Amendment. Plus, if you look at this idea of federal overreach and bureaucracy, anything that the federal government typically touches, it messes it up because it overspends, it overtaxes, and it overregulates. And part of this can be seen in the area of student loans. You know, one of the worst decisions ever made by the federal government was the decision to say, we are going to take over student loans. Why on earth that was ever done? I know why it was done. It was done by progressives whose intent for the entire time was to eventually have the federal government make education free. That was the point of that move. But by doing that, by the federal government coming in, because there used to be banks would issue loans, because that's what banks do. They would issue student loans that were backed by the government, but they were still privately held loans. And that way, the loan person could say, we're either A, going to give you the loan, not going to give you the loan, but more importantly, hey, dude, you got to repay the loan, because that's how business works. We loan you money, and then you pay it back. It's not complicated. Yet when the federal government took it over, now all of a sudden there was this push from the likes of Mondami in New York to Elizabeth Warren to say, well, we're just going to eliminate, and Joe Biden, how could I forget Joe Biden, to eliminate student debt, which was crazy. But the other point is, even if you put all this in a blender and say, really, should we be having the federal government doing this? By having the federal government mixing and messing up our education system, it really simply creates ineffectiveness and unaccountability. You know, if you go down and you don't like what your school is doing, if you're in the Parkway District, I live in the Parkway District. My kids all went to public school, all went to Parkway West. If you don't like what that school board's doing, you can go and talk to the school board. You can go to a school board meeting, as I have done. You can go and make statements to the school board, as I have done. On multiple occasions, I've spoken at school board meetings. And whether or not they've heard or done anything as a result of my statements in particular isn't the point. The point is that you have a voice, that you have the ability to come in and look at the people who are making decisions about your children and give them your opinion. And tell them, listen, if you don't consider my opinions, we're going to vote you out during the next election. That's the power of having a locally controlled educational system. But the bureaucrats, the left, the progressives in this country don't want that. They want central planning. They want central planning, which is straight out of the communist playbook, where it's all done out of Washington. And if all decisions about your children's education are made from some office building in Washington, D.C., number one, what power do you have? And number two, what ability do you have to influence that? And the answer is zero. Zero. Hey, we got to take a break here, but I want you to know that the elimination of the Department of Defense is a great thing for this country, and you should not be afraid of moving in that direction. Brad Young filling in for Mark Reardon today. We'll be back right after this on 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've still got that accident on the right side, westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker. Looks like it's mainly on the shoulder now, but the damage is done, and we've got a jam that goes back near Kings Highway. Now, southbound 170 is slowing at 64. We've got eastbound traffic slow 170 through Big Bend on 64. And out west, 6440, some moderate volume through Chesterfield Valley, and then Lake St. Louis Boulevard in pockets out through the Wentzville and 70 split. Now, 70 westbound slowing at Jennings Station Road, but that's about it. And if you're headed into Illinois, Now's the time. Really no delays there. Even on 6440 on the approach, we look good. This report is brought to you by Lakeside Renovation and Design. For over 25 years, they've been St. Louis's trusted choice for transforming homes inside and out. From windows and siding to kitchens, bathrooms, and outdoor spaces, they deliver quality craftsmanship backed by lifetime warranties. Visit lakesiderd.com to start your dream project today. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Mark Cox here. Join me, Annie Fry, and Mark Reardon, along with Bob and Tammy Kershaw of the Retirement Advisory Group for the next Protecting Your Retirement educational event. It's Tuesday, August 5th at the Frontenac Hilton at 6:30. Here are Bob and Tammy with more.
Are you nearing retirement or already retired? Do you have your personalized income plan in place? Would you like to learn why linking to the market is much safer than owning the market? And how in 39 years we have never lost a penny of our clients' money?
Would you like to learn how to automatically lock in your market gains every year without having to sell? Did you also know if you're 59 and a half or older, you can roll over your company retirement plan tax-free to protect your nest egg from any future losses? You'll get all the answers and more. If you're 59 and a half or older, you cannot afford to miss this event.
Protect your retirement nest egg and join the official financial advisors of my show, Bob and Tammy Kershaw, at the Frontenac Hilton, Tuesday, August 5th at 6:30. Go to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-949-1441. That's 800-949-1441. 800-949-1441.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
The time is 5:32. This update is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
Saying what you're thinking. Mark Reardon.
Brad Young sitting in for Mark Reardon today. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've got a lot of good comments on the YouTube channel, and if you want to do that, go to youtube.com, put in the search for Mark Reardon Show Live, and you can literally be a part of the show. I'm responding as fast as my little fingers can type during the break. So thanks for being a part of the show. Also, who's part of the show is Frank Miele. He's the retired editor of the Daily Interlake in Montana. He's a columnist for Real Clear Politics. And his latest book is entitled What Matters Most: God, Country, Family, and Friends. And I want to talk to Frank about his piece, Pushing Back Against the Big Medicaid Lie. Frank Miele, thanks for joining us this afternoon on 97.1 FM Talk.
Thanks, Brad.
So let's start with some definitions here. What is the Medicaid lie? Let's start there before we talk about how or why we should push back against it.
Sure. Well, essentially, the Democrats and Trump haters had to pick something out that they could sloganize. And so they created this, they got the boost from the Congressional Budget Office that is very Democrat-oriented, and they said that there would be 12 million people who would lose insurance if the big, beautiful bill passed. And so that is the starting point. The question is that a real number, or is it like, most Democrat things, voodoo? And when you look at it, it's basically voodoo.
So we look at the big, beautiful bill here, are there going to be any Medicaid recipients losing benefits because of what happened in the big, beautiful bill? Well,
one thing we know for sure is about at least 1.5 million illegal immigrants should be hunted down and cut off the Medicaid rolls. So that's a win. The other place where they're claiming there's going to be this big impact against average poor Americans is they're saying the work requirement is going to force people to lose their Medicaid. Well, the work requirement is really, really geared toward being as gentle as possible. And that is that if you're on Medicaid, you don't have children 14 or under, then you have to either be working 20 hours a week, volunteering 20 hours a week, or looking for work, proving it, just like when you're getting unemployment compensation, you have to prove that you're looking for work. So they're saying that the Democrats are basically saying that these people are going to, there's no way 5 million people are going to lose it because of the work requirement, because there are almost everybody who is on Medicaid is already exempted from the work requirement because
Correct.
they have children.
Right.
The people who, and the Democrats, one of the things they do, they'll be like, well, it's going to hurt hardworking Americans. People are working 2 jobs already, and they can't afford to lose their Medicaid. Well, if they're working 2 jobs already, they by definition can't lose Medicaid.
Exactly. And I want to push back on this in another way. You've said that all of these, the claim is that all these people will lose their benefits because of the requirement to work. But if we just look at it from that perspective, didn't Bill Clinton and Democrats who were in Congress during the 1990s also enact a similar provision that required able-bodied but unemployed people who receive benefits to work if they weren't otherwise excluded from having to work?
You are right again. It's not your grandfather's Democratic Party anymore. And it's not even Bill Clinton's Democratic Party anymore. Bill Clinton, who just endorsed a communist for mayor of New York. Essentially, yes, that is, that was the part of welfare reform that Bill Clinton pulled off that we can actually thank him for. Unfortunately, it didn't last really. It went backwards. But a lot of what they're doing is they're saying we increased Medicaid in unreasonable amounts over the last 20 years to ensure that poor people would support us with their votes because we're throwing money at them. And now you're trying to take away that unreasonable money we gave them. And we're going to blame you because that's what we do. And so, like, for instance, during COVID, the Congress passed extensive new premium subsidies for Affordable Care Act insurance so that people who make up to $120,000 a year with one child in the family are qualified to get subsidies. Well, sorry, but you don't need the subsidies. If you're making $100,000+, you probably have a good job to begin with, where you can get health insurance.
Exactly. We're talking to Frank Miele, and he is the retired editor of the Daily Interlake in Montana. He writes for Real Clear Politics. And Frank, I wanted to come back to the big beautiful bill for a moment because I looked into this today, knowing I was going to talk to you. I looked into this. And if you look just at the big, beautiful bill terms when it comes to Medicaid spending, it still increases Medicaid spending by 20% over the next 10 years. Isn't that right?
Exactly.
So here's my question. Here's my question. Don't jump the gun here. Let me give you the great question here. And the question is this. How can Democrats claim that we're cutting Medicaid if they're going to get more money every year for the next 20 years or 10 years?
Well, they don't. I mean, people on the street holding the protest signs up do say, don't cut Medicaid. But the Democrat politicians are pretty crafty. I mean, and they've essentially created this totally fake, Potemkin quality argument against the big beautiful bill, but none of it, when you examine it, none of it holds up. And it ultimately, the reason I wrote this column is because I'm afraid that the Republican politicians, including the ones who voted for this bill, are going to panic when they go into the midterms.
Correct.
And the thing doesn't even take effect until after the midterms, and most of it doesn't take effect till 2028.
Goodness.
So none of this is going to be, but the Democrats and their prop people are going to be saying they're stealing Medicaid from people. So Republicans have a very weak spine, and they're going to tend to back down and say, I didn't know that was in the bill. I'm so if I have a chance, I'll save Medicaid the next time there's a vote. So I basically laid out 5 talking points for Republican Congress people. Hey guys, pay attention. Medicaid spending is actually increasing. Having jobs is actually a good thing,
Exactly. And you make all that point in your article. But here's what I want to get back to for just a moment. People don't understand that only when you're talking about government, only in government-centered conversations, does a reduced increase amount to a cut. Because for you and me, if our boss comes to us and says, I'm going to cut your pay, that means next year I make less money than I made this year. But in government, a cut from the perspective of the progressive left, a reduced increase, meaning you're still going to get more money next year than you got this year. Only in Washington does that labeled a cut.
Yeah. I know what a cut is because I remember 2008, and I remember when my salary went down by 10%.
Yes,
so
that was a cut.
Is.
Yes, that was a cut.
Yeah, it was. But if my salary went up by 8% last year and only goes up by 6% this year, I better keep my mouth shut.
Yes.
So basically, the money. The way they play with money is so fascinating. The other one, they do exactly the opposite, which is they say, the national debt's going to increase by $3 to $5 trillion over 10 years. And then they're like, this is, we can't possibly. Well, first of all, Democrats are never going to vote to reduce spending.
Never.
So they're never going to come up with as little as $3 to $5 trillion increase over 10 years. They're going to come up with a lot more. And if you need evidence of it, over the last 10 years, the deficit or the debt increased by $17.5 trillion. So when they say $3 trillion is too much, they're just lying through their teeth.
Oh, they are. They are. And again, I find it funny, ironic is the word that comes to mind, that there's that the progressive left is screaming about the increase of the debt, and yet if you were to propose a Medicaid for all or Medicare for all program that would add hundreds of trillions of dollars to the debt, they would be first in line to vote for it.
Absolutely. Let's look at that New York City guy again.
Oh, Mondami.
He's giving away everything.
Oh, yeah, free groceries.
He says he's going to raise property taxes and stuff, but he has no control over it. He's leaving the legislature to become mayor. The legislature is the one that does that, not you, Mayor.
I know. Well, maybe he needs to go back to a civics class in high school. Frank Miele, Frank Miele, he's the retired editor of the Daily Interlake in Montana. He also is a columnist for Real Clear Politics. Listen, folks, I read Real Clear Politics every day. You want to go there as well. And Frank Miele's newest book, What Matters Most: God, Country, Family, and Friends. Frank, thanks so much for joining us on 97.1 FM Talk. Great to talk to you, sir. And I'm glad that he could make the point about the way government works. Hey, we're going to take a break. Coming up, we've got the audio cut of the day in the next segment and more right here on 97.1 FM Talk. Brad Young in. Stick around.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We still have that accident westbound 6440 approaching Clayton Skinker. It's off on the right shoulder, but it is causing a delay this afternoon, and that delay goes back through Kings Highway. Now, westbound 70, a little slow at Jennings Station Road and at Wentzville, but we're looking pretty good right now, even on southbound 55. And if you are headed into Illinois, we look fine on the bridges downtown. I did have an accident reported Wild Acres Drive at Highway 100, and that's about it. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. I've been asked many times how Morgan & Morgan became the largest injury firm in the world. I think I know. When someone comes to us for an on-the-job injury, we have a huge workers' compensation practice. But many times we find a defective product that was responsible for that injury. Luckily for them, we have a product liability section headed by my son Mike. In addition to the comp case, there is a product case too. Other times, the injured worker is fired or harassed for bringing that claim. We have them covered. Our employment lawyers handle retaliation claims as well as wage theft and discrimination cases, and in some cases need to file for Social Security benefits. No problem. We became big for a reason. 30% of our new cases come as referrals from former clients. Hiring us is easy. Go to forthepeople.com on your mobile device or computer, or call Pound Law on your cell, pound 529. Morgan & Morgan. Injured? Dial Pound Law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Viking, dedicated to creating travel experiences for the thinking person, with programs designed for cultural enrichment on board and on shore. Discover more at Viking.com. That's Viking.com. Viking.com.
The Annie Fry Show.
I don't see the Democrat side of the aisle really making a strong effort to be like, we'd really like to compete for your vote and your attention. They're not winning. They're trying to beat Donald Trump again.
The Annie Fry Show. Weekdays from noon to 3. The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
I got to tell you, Matthew, love the bumper music today. Loving the bumper music. Thanks for doing that. Brad Young here on the last segment here on the Mark Reardon Show. I believe Heidi Harris will be in tomorrow for Mark, and so you're obviously definitely going to want to stick around for Heidi Harris tomorrow. I want to follow up on what I was talking about in the prior segment regarding Medicare and Medicaid, because if you look up how many people are on Medicare and Medicaid right now, just Google it. It's between 71 and 100 million people in the United States, depending on how you define what's under that program. But specifically regarding Medicaid itself, 80 million people. Now, I'm not a math genius. Listen, as an attorney, the only math that attorneys are good at is figuring up a 33% fee on a judgment. Other than that, we got nothing when it comes to math, right? But do the math. If there's 80 million people in this country on Medicaid, and there's about 347 million people in America, that means roughly, and I'm just doing this in my head, so forgive me if I'm off a little bit, that's roughly about 21% of all Americans are on Medicaid. 21%. So we just had this conversation about whether Medicaid is being cut, and I pointed out to you, and as our guest made the point very astutely, the big beautiful bill did not cut one penny from Medicaid. Did not cut one penny. Now, I think the argument can be made here, and I think the argument should be made that maybe we should be cutting back on some Medicaid benefits. Because if you've got 21% of your population that are right now living on Medicaid benefits, that's a pretty high number. I think that's an extraordinarily high number. And listen, I'm in the part of the legal business. I see people hurt all the time. I understand and I care for those folks, and I deal with individuals who can never return to work. I'm representing companies in a lot of workers' compensation claims, and I see the reality of folks who can't go back to work. I get it. I understand it. I deal with it every day. But when you're looking at 21% of your population on Medicaid, that's a bit high. But even with that number being as high as it is, not one single dollar is being cut from Medicaid right now. Do you hear that from any mainstream media today? Not at all. Not at all. You don't hear that at all. You also don't hear that if folks actually do get off of Medicaid to go work, isn't that a good thing? I mean, let's look at it from this perspective. Don't we want people to be employed? Think of all the benefits of being employed. The socialization, the feeling of contributing, the actuality of contributing to society. Isn't that better for a person who can work? I'm not, and the argument against me is, oh well, somebody who's lost both legs and lost both arms and they're blind and they can't hear. My goodness, how are they supposed to go get a job? I'm not talking about those folks, and neither are any of the Republicans in Congress. We're talking about the able-bodied people who should be able to get a job. And don't we want that as a country for their own benefit and for our own benefit? Listen, you drive down the street, how many restaurants are looking to hire someone? How many businesses are essentially saying, if you have a pulse, if there is blood in your veins, we will hire you? It's everywhere. So we want that. So why would we want to be encouraging more people to be on Medicaid? Shouldn't we be wanting to encourage people to get off? That helps them. It helps the country by not having to pay their benefits. And it further helps the country by the tax dollars that are being made when they're actually in the workplace benefits us all. So, boy, it is a tough argument to make that the big, beautiful bill is hurting anyone when it comes to the Medicaid department, because the reality is that it does not. Hey, I also want to get to something else that's in the news today, and that is the audio cut of the day.
It's just Trump sucks. That's the underlying, thought of everything the Democrats do. Trump sucks. Trump says, the sky is blue. Trump sucks. You can't, that's not the way to win. It's just not, because it's not about Trump. It's about the people of the United States of America and what's good for them. And how do you get them to a place where they're in a better position and it's less stressful for them?
The best thing I've ever heard from Eleanor Roosevelt. You remember Eleanor Roosevelt? She was the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. And wasn't a big fan of FDR as president. Of course, I wasn't around then. But historically, not a big fan of his concept of basically socialism light. Not a fan. But Eleanor Roosevelt said something that was quite profound. And listen, I don't care what someone's perspective is. If they say something profound, it doesn't matter whether they're right, left, center, or anywhere else. And the profound thing that she said that ties in with what Mark Cuban just said is this. Eleanor Roosevelt said, great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss personalities and people. Now, let's apply the Eleanor Roosevelt analysis to the current political discourse. You just heard Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is a self-described Democrat. He's also a billionaire, but he's a self-described Democrat, always votes for Democrats. He said that the Democrat Party, the only idea that they have right now is Trump sucks. That's the only idea. Now, what ideas do we have coming out of the Republican Party these days? Well, we've heard a lot of them right here on the show today. This idea that we should be reducing government dependency and encouraging people to live independent lives. That's a big idea, right? It's also a big idea that Trump is not just giving weapons to Ukraine, but he's selling weapons to Europe, who will reimburse us to then give them to Ukraine. That does multiple things. Number one, it helps Ukraine fight Russia, which is a good thing. Number two, it advances U.S. business interests by selling missiles in a way that doesn't increase our own tax dollars. That's a good thing. And number three, it makes all of the Europeans stakeholders in a war that is literally going on in their own backyard. That, my friends, is a win-win-win. Talk about a big idea. What's the solution for the left for Ukraine? We're not hearing it. What's the solution for the left when it comes to inflation? We're not hearing it. In fact, the only plan that we're hearing from the left is coming from Mamdani and AOC in New York City, which is let's have government-owned grocery stores, let's give free food to the masses, let's have rent control. By the way, if you've ever lived in a rent control situation, I have not, but if you've ever lived in a rent-controlled situation, for those who have and have told me about it, it is terrible. You want to know why it's terrible? Because the owner of the property is losing money under rent control. And when they're losing money, they have no financial incentive to make sure that your heat works. When the landlord is losing money, he or she has no incentive to come in and put in a new toilet or a new bathroom, or to fix your locks, or to do anything else that a landlord should do. They have no financial incentive because they're losing money on the property. If those are the big ideas, if those are the big minds discuss ideas, or great minds discuss ideas, if those are the great ideas coming from the left today, I want no part of it. I want no part of a philosophy that tries to say that the government should make sure that there are no billionaires. Do I think Jeff Bezos has too much money? Of course he has too much money. But whose job is it to decide how much money we can or cannot make? Should the government be making that decision? Because if we do, in other words, if we empower the government to determine who should be billionaires and how much money we can make, it's all going to go to the government. And you know that's true. You know it's true. And so this idea of eliminating billionaires, that's not a new idea. It's called socialism. This idea of seizing control of the means of production. Google that. I said this earlier in the show. Google that phrase, seizing the means of production. It's right out of the Karl Marx playbook. That's not a new idea. That's from the 1800s. So we need new ideas, and we're getting it from the Republicans. Brad Young sitting in today for Mark Reardon. Heidi Harris will be in tomorrow. Stick around on 97.1 FM Talk.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
I'll tell you what, this accident on Wild Acres Drive, which is just south of Melrose Drive, if that helps you, at Highway 100 is causing a real jam there. So if you are traveling in that area, that is what the problem is. But on the interstates, we look good. Westbound 70 is in great shape. Westbound 64, there's some moderate volume at the Boone Bridge in the construction zone. But if you are on 55 or 270 southbound, we look fine. And no delays as drivers head into Illinois. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk.
Is your home, business, or church looking tired, chalky, or in need of curb appeal? Go Rhino. Tired of painting year after year? Go Rhino. Our unique 3M ceramic technology is perfect for brick, stucco, aluminum, steel, color lock masonite, and more. It's backed by our 25-year transferable warranty to not chip, crack, or peel. Great if you're staying, and even better if you're selling. Our ceramic coating allows you to maintain all of your architectural features. The decision to do vinyl will leave your home looking like a plastic moldy box. With Rhino Shield, in 15 years, your home will still have that, wow, it looks like you just got it painted. We've done large condo complexes, parking garages, pole barns, and commercial strip malls. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. Evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. See what we did there? Genius. Tell them, ladies.
No paint, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
If you're considering an annuity as part of your retirement plan, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Bob Stockdale, Senior Vice President Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money, Saturday mornings at 11 on 97.1 FM Talk. Annuities can be a useful tool for some retirement investors, but not all annuities are created equal. Every week, we meet clients who own complex annuities that don't suit their needs and, in some cases, actively undermine their retirement plan. Before you purchase an annuity, get a second opinion from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel.